Feet no lie. I woke up this morning with a mission. Try to stream every day if I can. Try to stream different things. I won't be always watching video. My Switch is hooked up to the other TV, so I might be start playing more Smash. And Metro Dread once I get to 100. I've been on 94 followers for a hot minute. Or to me, it's a hot minute. It's only been like about a month or say about a month or two. And I've been like, there was 1 week on my birthday I did not stream. Like literally a whole week I did not stream my birthday. I kind of was thinking about it, but I kept getting fucked up. Everywhere I was at, bro, like for the whole week, which is the first time that ever happened, I had a birthday week. Cause you don't get that shit too often, especially as a guy. So I like people celebrating me like the day before and the day after with all types of alcohol and debauchery, bro. I was like out of it. Like I don't remember 2 days in a row. That's how bad it was. But yeah, nigga gonna start streaming again more often. More feed stuff. Shit, if Sneeko could do it, I can do it too. That nigga just be screaming. I'm not saying he doesn't like do anything, but that nigga just be screaming, watching his YouTube feed and then having like 6,000 people pull it. But we go about to watch some blind review where I'm told now Mark. I like watching his reviews for what it is, or depending on what series he's covering. For the most part, I wish he would do you. I think he did you. No, he did. He did Hunter x Hunter. I hope he does Yu Hashiko, cause that's another good banger. If he likes the Gashi work, then he's gonna fuck with that. But he really loves One Piece and Dragon Ball, but not really like Naruto and Hunter x Hunter like that. But let's keep going.
Big fan of Robin's more understated personality.
Plus, I'm
and
gonna be
seeing that
boofing the whole
contrast
time,
in
but I won't
starting
boof
against
until
her
this
newly
is like
revealed demonic
done.
form makes this contest my favorite amongst the Toby Roppo battles. But enough of that bullshit. Time for Luffy's return.
I sped it up a little bit too, cause it's his review, so I don't want to get like copyright.
Money for a subscription. Only
Skip.
located.
Yeah, fuck these in there.
Out with the trash and feel free to quote me. Yeah.
What? There's no way Kaido sound like that in the English dubs. For 4Kids TV
I've touched on
shit.
this countless times since Punk Hazard, but Momo's journey throughout this story has been nothing short of incredible. And now that Luffy is back on the scene, pushing toward.
By the way, One Piece is not my even top 5. I do watch it and keep up with it. I just don't. I'm not personally attached to the One Piece universe. So I like that as just it's like I don't want to say it's like reading the Bible. I got up to like Alabasta. No. I got to up to what you call it, Enel lobby. Then I stopped after that. And after Enel's lobby, yeah, I stopped and then now here I am. So it's like reading the Bible, Genesis, and then going straight to Revelation. Even though this shit's taking forever to finish. But yeah,
The finale. This is where the tale starts to pick up steam once again.
Mononosuke.
And as I was reading this for the first time, when Luffy asked Momo to turn into a dragon and lift him up to the roof of Onigashima, I couldn't ask for a more perfect full circle moment for these two characters and their relationship to have. Having come out of a pit in Punk Hazard, having pushed him to become a man, now Momo finds himself assuming more responsibility than anyone his age should ever have to shoulder. Begging to use the ripe fruit to turn him into a fully grown man, appropriate, I think, for this story and his whole character's arc, seeing as they've both been about needing to grow up too soon in a violent and harsh world. And the action is also so perfectly laced with so much of this wonderful characterization this series is famous for.
Plus the art
Luffy
looked really
coaches
good
the
though, no
increasingly
lie.
confident but still timid Momo into battle with Kaido, eventually coaxing the now full-grown man in dragon form to bite his back, with Luffy exclaiming, "That's an Emperor of the Sea you just took a bite out of. Is there a single thing left in this world for you to be scared of?" That's just a wonderfully simple yet insightful Luffy line of dialogue only Oda could write, with him going on to proclaim, "Don't worry about Kaido, I guarantee I'll win. As long as I'm alive, I'll have infinite chances." This sort of character writing is exactly the type of inspiration and uplifting stuff I read this series for.
Luffy don't give up.
His confidence and conviction in his own abilities translate so powerfully in these moments, and Oda does a wonderful job of communicating that very aspect. Zoro and Sanji take on King and Queen. Sanji and Zoro's dance with King and Queen was honestly a lot more engaging than I otherwise thought it would be. I suppose with the past 20 or so chapters not delivering enough to capture my attention, it's to be expected that's where my mind was at. However, a great story can win me over any time, and including core character moments.
I'm not gonna lie, Sanji is kind of underwhelming this whole Wano arc, like dead ass. He did one thing where he's like, oh, I don't need a German suit anymore, but that was about it, bro. Like Zoro had more like Zoro and Sanji took the back seat to Luffy Gear 5, and some of the other pirate has like, who are the three monster trios? Is it Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji, or is it Luffy, Law, and Kid? And so, because I don't know who's the monster trio, or this is just the worst generation. I don't know, but Well, it shows like they'll rotate trios, not all trios, but they rotate those trios. So it's like having, damn, I can't even say Naruto.
For the likes of these two strong components of the Straw Hat Pirates was just what the Doctor ordered. Sanji's conflicting thoughts surrounding his usefulness to his captain and his body's full capabilities compromising his moral code was an interesting one to tackle for sure.
And I did not like when they put him against like one of the women villain, and they didn't do anything, so they make Robin shine. Which is no problem with Robin shining, but if the whole point was to have, my bad, Robin come and like beat that person, should decided from the start instead of having him get tied up, slapped, and crying and say, I don't hit a woman. I'm like, okay, fine. You can definitely get out of that spider web, though, nigga. It's like you putting yourself in a position you don't want. I mean, he probably does because he's Sanji, but like in general, bro, like to be honest, bro, he didn't really like pop off until like he pulled up on Queen. To be honest.
Sure. Part of the reason I never anticipated I would enjoy this fight as much as I did was due to the fact that while Queen and maybe King were two of the more well-known underlings of Kaido, I still didn't really feel any meaningful emotional connection to them.
Yeah.
Queen was probably the one I had the biggest emotional response to, due to his actions in Udon, but outside of that I felt it was lacking. However, Oda manages to circumvent this very issue by creating a living manifestation in Queen of everything Sanji rejected from his family, utilizing all the gear his relatives made famous in this story. That was honestly a brilliant idea. And while I do have issues with how this page makes itself known on the pages of physical manga, I think online it makes for not only a tremendous finish, but a fantastic final panel in this compelling fight. Of the chapters concerning these two, however, I believe I found Zoro's oddly enough to be the most compelling, particularly in chapter 1033. Unlike many other Straw Hat Pirates, Zoro has remained more of an enigma than pretty much any of them. And a few words that allows his actions to speak for themselves. Getting the chance to peek behind that man of a few words and allow the pictures to do all the talking was interesting to say the least. Learning the history of his blades and part of his origin to boot, with of course his battle with King revealing the henchman's true appearance, culminating in similar fashion to that of Sanji's bout, a superbly large and spectacularly composed spread. And I swear, okay, this will be the last time I'll mention the page layouts, but I think this one gripe I have is
that won't go harm.
I understand that more and more manga isn't read physically, and that's to be expected. It's expensive and takes up space, so while I anticipate manga to go the same way as records, cassette tapes, and CDs, I personally love collecting physical copies of manga, and it's my preferred means every now and again, and given that Oda will very, very seldomly...
One thing I have an issue with Oda is that he put a lot of shit in his panel sometimes. Like, reading some parts of Wano, I had to, like, reread, because there was so much panel exposition. I was just like, bruh. It's just, like, so much stuff. And this is just the final chapter. This is the final page in the chapter. You can imagine, like, what's going on before that. That shit is, like, mad people.
A page for a single panel, let alone 2 pages for a single panel like other mangas do. This is the closest we get to consistent, large panels within One Piece. This would be fine. If not for one small issue I've grown to nitpick and then hate as I've read this story. When reading it in physical manga, it destroys the image as it's not taking into account the creases in between the 2 pages of the manga. Okay, rant over, time to talk about more cool stuff. Law and Kid take down Big Mom. Generally speaking, I think from the King and Queen fight onwards, the action really started to hit its stride for me. While I appreciate the dedication in giving Killer and Hawkins their time to shine, I didn't really feel much in the way of entertainment from that section. I know for a fact there are those out there that love that material, and for that reason I'm glad that it's there, it's just not for me. The fight with Big Mom, on the other hand, had a tremendous amount at stake, and interestingly had no Straw Hats involved, giving credibility to the idea that they needed an alliance with these guys in order to defeat these monsters together.
Big facts.
And the fight was actually kinda dope too. Big Mom looks terrifying in this exchange, standing atop her minions, growing in size, taking things to the utter extreme as she finds 2 formidable foes standing before her. Kid gets downed, and then she redirects her attention when suddenly, she gets stabbed.
Yeah, that shit was crazy. That shit went straight through there. I like, yo.
As the fight presses itself onward, that's right, it keeps going after she gets stabbed in the face. I can feel Oda taking his foot off the brake and placing it firmly on the accelerator as this fight goes from strength to strength. Painting Big Mom as more monstrous as the pages and chapters tick on by. The scale of the battle elevates to absurdity as Law punctures her body with his blade, and finally Kid blasts her to Kingdom Come with his giant cannon. All of that sounded really... Moving on. And just when I thought that was the ending, it keeps on going. If nothing else,
wasn't even done.
Fight, in fact,
Life was slavery.
Mission in painting Big Mom as an unrelenting force of nature, the likes of which could only be taken out with what looks like a nuclear explosion on this page spread. Then, and only then, could Kid and Law be declared the winners. Now... As many of you know, this is where the big elephant Zunisha comes in, and one of the most... Okay, yeah, that's appropriate there. That's when one of the more divisive aspects of the arc becomes
the transition.
As we return to Kaido and Luffy's fight, news reaches Kaido, and by proximity Luffy, that Lin Lin has been defeated. Which means
the Impact shots have been going crazy lately.
This is an awesome setup, but knowing where this is going, what makes it even more effective is the time limit and tension that spawns from that very limit being imposed. Luffy declares that he is going to go all out, not hold anything back, assume Gear 4, and keep punching until he has...
No cap, like the fight between... I like the fight between Luffy and Katakari. That's pretty nice, but the fight I've been seeing so far between Luffy and Kaido, the animation is movie like, bro, no lie. Like, and they delivering every episode, but they got to. It's toy anime. These niggas try to Dragon Ball and One Piece, one of the two biggest series in the world. You better have the bread to make this shit look good. Other than that, you lacking. Yeah.
Absolutely.
But yeah, the fight is like movie quality. Like every episode, every Crunchyroll clip I see, like the animation is like peak. I'm not saying like the best I ever seen, but for like an episode to episode versus how One Piece used to get ragged on because of the character design, came a long way. You guys don't identify. It would kind of remind me of Mob Psycho. I love Mob Psycho. Mob Psycho is kind of like the same way. You got to get used to the characters, how the way they look, and then the animation go dummy crazy. And as time go by, it just becomes like its own
Nothing
thing.
left. Either Kaido gives out or Luffy gives out, and we're hoping it's the former. And as time ticks on by, while he gets some good licks in, Kaido doesn't
Damn, I
even
got
seem
like
to be
15
taking
minutes.
this nearly as seriously as Luffy is. Still
He
arguing
said
with
hit
him,
me.
managing to, on the fly, learning his most advanced movements, and if that wasn't bad enough, the tides
I don't know who's stronger, Drunk Kaido or Serious Kaido.
be turning, and Luffy is running out of juice. Defiant as always, he gathers his strength for one last fantastic attack, and...
Good.
Luffy loses. The winner is Kaido. This moment takes us from the highest of highs we were flying to perhaps one of the lowest moments in this
Yeah,
series.
somebody
Luffy
came in,
is
I was like, what
declared
the
dead,
fuck?
And the looks on the
I'm
faces
like, who the hell
of
is
those
that?
he trusted, befriended, and traveled with are nothing short of heartbreaking. Nami's face in particular strikes a chord with me here. The first person who ever really understood her and had the power to change her life for the better. She's told that he's died, and Oda captures that feeling beautifully in this tragic reaction panel of hers.
Remind me
Torture,
of
chaos, and horror reigns from the
Sakura,
heavens as Kaido
like
does what he does best,
when
and then,
Naruto guys beat you taken away. She was like, oh shit.
for the first time in 800 years, Joy Boy returns. Gear 5. Luffy's Gear 5 was a form...
Yo, this shit been memed the fuck out when it came out, bro. The amount of crazy shit I was seeing from this like meme panel was wild, bro. Not safe for viewers though, not even safe for children, but that shit was wild, bro. Niggas going ham. I'm like, nah. Oh man, like if you see this is some wild shit that's be
form
happening
that
with
gave
this
me
meme.
pause for a second. One that caused me to reflect upon the entire series and look at it perhaps in a new light. Now, communicating my complicated feelings surrounding this is going to be difficult without examples, and so I want to start this dissection of the form off by addressing what made one of my old favorites, the classic Super Saiyan form and transformation from 1991, so popular and interesting to millions around the world.
I'm not gonna lie. Didn't I prefer your Luffy? Out of all the gears, even though I would say maybe Bando Man or Snake Man is probably the best looking one. This one just remind me like a Super Saiyan Diet. I'm not gonna lie.
Even to the
Like the white hair and yeah, it's like Super Saiyan. I'm like, why the fuck is Luffy turning Super Saiyan? It's not even that. It's just the hockey.
I think part of the reason Super Saiyan as a concept and form is so special resides largely in the contrast it creates between its raw strength and the sadness of its initial execution.
Yeah.
So what do I mean by that? Well, in the very instant Goku achieves this form, he becomes, in effect, the personification of pain, loss, and retribution in the series, echoing the themes of the arc and indeed the broader story as it stood then, achieving a massive emotional and cultural effect around the world. This is all, of course, to say that while enjoying the surface-level goodness that scene brandishes is okay, I think it's additionally important to consider the impact or thematic relevance this transformation or transformations like this offers the greater story a given character is undergoing. Naturally, it must look the part in order for it to be an effective marketing tool. However,
Yeah.
if we decide to look past the gimmick and capitalistic intent behind the design, narratively there's a lot for us to either subconsciously or consciously latch onto here. Super Saiyan as a form comes from an individual reaching their breaking point, snapping mentally, letting oneself fall into an abyss of anger far beyond any rational thought. It's born of frustration and rage, lashing out
Oh.
uncontrollably,
And
like
it
trying to
cleanses
harness
all
the
his
power of the
bleeding.
sun, if only for a moment. Visually, it was striking in its simplicity, but thematically, it was a rebirth and
Yeah, like
trauma,
like
instant
the
change.
Super Saiyan design was kind of simple, but at the same time, what it meant back then was like, oh shit, like I don't think nothing really comes close to like the Super Saiyan form when it comes to transformation, like anywhere in anime history. It kind of like, I won't say it set the tone because people transforming and stuff before that, but it was more like, damn, like this is the shit. Like Super Saiyan when it first came out was like the shit. I know Gear 5 don't have that same thing. People talk about Gear 5, but they talk about its utility more than its actual like look and how it fits into the theme. Because to me, it kind of just came out of nowhere.
that allowed the user to walk
Damn.
a dangerously fine line and wield
I
a
seen that
necessary
kick.
strength to vanquish a formidable evil. In the case of Goku, that evil was Frieza. And there's something unbelievably cathartic.
Frieza!
Following the success of that watershed moment from manga and anime history, like any other trope that becomes popular, hundreds and hundreds of other new stories sprouted from that newly fertile soil, trying their best to, in good faith, emulate or straight up copy the concept in the hopes of finding comparable massive successes. Some innovated on the idea and found tremendous success, while others didn't. However, now, over 30 years later, it's easy to get lost in cliche expectations of what a transformation ought to be now. While Akira Toriyama tapped into a specific type of transformation through anger, the mechanism by which one transforms narratively is far less important than the narrative connection or story that it
My boy
represents within
Denji.
the character itself.
Can't
This
wait.
is, again, all to say that one doesn't need to channel anger to faithfully apply this narrative technique. In fact, you could, in theory, do the exact opposite and see a similarly effective narrative result. Which brings me to Monkey D. Luffy's now somewhat... Okay, I swear that's the last time. His
Yeah,
now
for real,
somewhat
bro. That
controversial
shit too
Gear
much.
5 transformation. Discussing aspects of a character as
That
old
panel
and as
too.
well-worn as
That
Luffy
panel
is
go
an
crazy,
intimidating
dog.
character, at least for me. I've grown up with the likes of Goku and enjoy analyzing him for that very reason. Despite my thoughts on certain aspects of the series and indeed the character,
I want to start
with certain
boofing until I
people or
get to
populations online,
Preacher
I at the
Nalba.
very
I'm trying to
least
see what the
know
hell
their
going on with
backgrounds are,
them.
which allows me to at least feel like I did my due diligence before I release a given video. With Luffy, I don't have that
Luffy.
same security, and so for the purposes of this section, I chatted with two lifelong
He's a
friends
pretty
of the
simple
series to get
character.
a
He's
better
pretty
idea
funny
of what
too.
they thought. And so the following are my fully synthesized thoughts on the topic of Luffy's Gear 5 transformation. Despite anger being a powerful, albeit somewhat now socially safe catalyst for modern shonen authors to grant to their protagonist, any transformation Luffy's undergone through Gears has never, and I mean never, been about anger. Each gear, of course, is wildly different and instantly memorable in their own ways, but ultimately, the common thread isn't anger, resentment, hatred, or any other comparably powerful negative emotion. Instead, it's quite simply his imagination. For the purposes of this argument, let's take a walk back through memory lane to what stands out to me as being significant with his development concerning the gear system. Let's start with Gear 2. The very moment Luffy learned there was a trick to CP9 Soru, or Shave, he used his own imagination to craft a method of equating their speed. It might have been demonstrated and unveiled to us during a moment of tense significance,
Yeah,
similar
that's
to other
true.
more traditional shonens, including
That is
Dragon
true.
Ball. However, the impetus for the Gear 2 technique being developed came from Luffy's ability to see what was possible and where he needed to be to
I ain't gonna lie, I was fucking with Gear 2 though. No, like Gear 2, I was fucking with that shit. Like, it's always like the first transformation that you really like start fucking with until they start like elaborating. Like Naruto's like I would say Naruto's initial Karubu form, and even the One Tails kind of like for what it did had you more hype than the gradual transformation between KCM 1 to KCM 2 or KCM 1 to maybe even I won't say the war, because that was actually pretty good too, because when he got the 6 breath mode it looked kind of gas, I'm not gonna lie. So like, but the initial like Gear 2 was the shit, Super Saiyan 1 was the shit. The initial when Naruto's actually getting mad with the Kuruma, we all wait for his eyes to turn red, that's when shit was going down, like shit like that. That's what I like I get that, like Gear 2 versus the rest of them where it's just like, oh well, it's just stacking on like. With the Super Saiyan, like Super Saiyan 1 and 2 was cool. Super Saiyan 3 was good because it's exclusive to Goku. Then after it was until like Gotenks did, but let's be honest, it's mostly like Goku shit, not Gotenks. But Gotenks always show up Super Saiyan 3 at most. But like stuff like that, I prefer like the first iteration of showing Case of Power.
the competition. And every subsequent addition to his gear system
One
followed
shit
suit,
is like
using
falling
his
apart.
imagination to manifest his own destiny. He wanted to punch harder and therefore created Gear 3. Upon learning hockey from Raleigh during the time skip, Luffy incorporated it into his fighting style and created a new Gear 4 capable of taming the beast he was training against. Combating Cracker, he utilized his own size to generate more defensive power, a la Tank Man. Against Katakuri, he needed to go faster and did so by way of Snake Man. Every single time Luffy's development eventually produces something new, they have always come from his own ability to see what he
his
needs, and using his
imagination.
imagination cobbles together some solution from what he has available to him. And I think that's what's
He
important.
didn't just
It's
get
not
madder.
necessarily what he's
He
responding
uses
to, but the
imagination.
fashion with which he responds to that thing. This
There's
is all
nobody
to say
in
that Luffy's
shonen
gears, at
fights
least
like
as far as
Luffy,
I can
bro.
see it, aren't simply a power-up for the sake of making him stronger. They're a full-on example of his ingenuity to create and shape his body to fit the scenario and find a way to win. And in these instances, the limit was always his imagination. The more he learned, the broader his perspective grew, and ultimately the more fantastical his transformations became. To me, that's what Gear 5 is. It's a fantastic and fantastical culmination of everything Luffy is and always has represented in the story. Freedom. echoing precisely what he told Raleigh and Shaki on Sabaody way back, that he wants to live freer than anyone else. Furthermore, it's brilliant and somewhat appropriate, in my mind at least, that there's a population of people online that refers to Gear 5 as, quote, Toon Force.
They keep saying that.
It's evocative of exactly the attributes that make imagination and the freedom to express and explore art so effective. I mean, what else broadens the scope of imagination more than cartoons? In Dragon Ball, Goku's sudden and abrupt transformation into the legendary Super Saiyan saw a once happy-go-lucky young man focused on lightheartedly improving himself through martial arts shift violently into a monstrous and terrifying force of nature. One that would aggressively bark at his own son to leave, and one that would strike fear into the most terrifying entity the universe itself had ever seen. Goku and Luffy have been compared quite frequently and are similar in many important ways. However, one of their many foundational differences comes in how their stories have their personalities interact with the world.
That's only
Goku's story details his journey to surpass.
I would say when it comes to like base character comparison, you could say Luffy has the personality more akin to like Kid Goku. But that's where it kind of stops at. Like, Goku has developed into his own character, even though they do some character regression sometimes, like Super, where he's like, oh, super dumb again. Like, as a kid, like he goes back to like being like kid-like. Then he is like the Super Saiyan or the type of Goku we seen in the Frieza Cell Saga, or even the Saiyan Saga too. Like, he's become more a watered-down version of himself at times. But with like Luffy, he's been kind of pretty consistent. He hasn't. I won't say Luffy has grown. I wouldn't say Luffy didn't grow, but his most of his demeanor is still intact. Where like Naruto shifted from the he's just like Goku, he's always making pranks and stuff, so he's being his own character and all of that.
His personal limitations imposed by his own physical body time and again, Luffy specifically focuses on his ability to overcome limitations placed onto him by external forces, to brave the harsh and dangerous oceans that he himself can drown in, to broaden his horizons far beyond what modern man had ever seen, and to achieve true freedom no matter how dangerous it can be. And so, in the same way Super Saiyan represents Goku shattering his own previous physical limitations, this bombastic and fantastical Gear 5 form represents Luffy taking the freedom that he seeks for himself.
I don't know where he grabbed the lightning from, but I guess he turned the lightning into rubber.
Considered possible. And paying homage to that childlike wonder and joy is not only, I think, a brilliant move by Oda, but one that roots the story once again in the type of character writing I've praised throughout this ever-growing series of reviews, encapsulating everything someone named Joy Boy should represent in the hearts and minds of society, not only in the world of One Piece, but perhaps ours too. With it, in addition to that, heightening the thematic counterbalance between Luffy and Kaido to boot. I mean, to see this, you need look no further than this speech by Kaido himself. He says, "Abilities alone cannot conquer the world, because only Haki can transcend all." Kaido himself has internalized Haki as the be-all and end-all. As long as the battle was a 1v1 foundationally built around the strength of one's own willpower, Kaido was going to be the winner. He was the strongest 1v1 as he was touted as being. One should always bet on him. He conquers all. However, as Luffy has said many times in the past, he has never been, nor has he any intention of becoming, a conqueror. He was never about that, quote, "I'm not going to conquer anything. The one who is the most free is the Pirate King." The moment Luffy becomes the freest is when, haha, you don't think I noticed, but I noticed, you sneaky bastards.
Yeah.
The moment Luffy becomes the freest is when his willpower is truly capable of matching Kaido's. And what does he say when he beats him? What does he say to defeat the mindset of the strongest in all the world who believes equality is based around physical strength?
Straw Hat.
Well, Luffy wants to
all my friends
a world
get
where his friends can eat as much food as they want. In a battle of wills on top of the world itself, Luffy is the personification of boundless freedom and compassion, imagining a world that isn't just limited by his own enjoyment, but those of his friends. Of course, Kaido was always going to win a 1v1 brawl, but the whole point of this battle, from the very beginning, was that it wasn't simply a 1v1 contest, a battle of brawn. Luffy had always been supported and buoyed by the people around him. He gained strength from them, and there's no greater example of that being the case than this moment right here. If Luffy had done what so many other shonen protagonists had done and lashed out in a fit of traumatic rage against Kaido, surpassing his physical limits once again in order to overcome this monstrous individual,
just by getting mad.
In my view, not only being massively bereft of any creativity or originality, but would have also been...
Yeah, because Luffy was laughing in Gear 5, so that was what made it different. It didn't derive from anger or like trauma or turmoil. It was more like just like it says, it's like I'm being free, bro. Like, it's for the freedom.
Far less emotionally and narratively resonant with the rest of the story.
Alright, we got 4 minutes, y'all boys.
In the same way, Game of Thrones' Ramsay Bolton was quoted by saying,
"If you think this has a happy ending, you haven't been paying attention."
echoing the realistic and tragic themes of its story, so too does Luffy echo the themes of his in his battle with Kaido through the very transformation mechanic popularized by Dragon Ball over 30 years ago. In response to the need he has to create a world for his friends to have enough food to eat, he imagines and manifests his own unique solution to that problem. And in the process of writing this, Oda himself managed to manifest a worthy modern interpretation of the classic shonen transformation popularized all those years ago. In my honest opinion, I think this transformation fits One Piece better than perhaps any other. And so, in effect,
I mean, it makes sense, yeah. It's just the look of it
could be the most
will remind people of Super Saiyan, but other than that, it's not. That's just where it stops.
Victory. Luffy's ultimate defeat of Kaido is a simple yet brilliant one. Because of his reliance on the Straw Hat Pirates with their unwavering belief and support in their captain,
so much
he was
paneling.
able to, with their assistance, save Wano and make good on his promise. Whereas, on the other hand, Kaido's ranks are full of dissension and betrayal through the likes of his so-called alliances. All in all, I'm very happy with the conclusion to this one. With the final speech to the people of the Flower Capital coming from the young at heart Kozuki Momonosuke, echoing his father's beliefs, the words
He
his
said
people needed to hear,
Kazuki?
and giving me shivers in the process, it was a spectacular speech, and furthermore, a terrific
Honestly,
reveal of what he in fact
I ain't gonna say
I've
nothing.
speculated for quite a bit during my now very long series of reviews concerning this very arc itself that once the dust does settle on Wano and the day is won, the world outside would be very, very different. And I think it's really cool to see that they're making use of that device in the story. With new bounties being announced, the world government scrambling, people trying to attack Wano now that Kaido is gone, it all paints a picture of a much more aware and wild world ready for Luffy and his crew to arrive. Particularly now seeing as he's one of the 4 emperors of the sea.
No,
Hearing
yeah.
about Pluton was kind of cool too. Like, seriously, I don't think I would have guessed that about Wano hundreds of years ago, even if I had 100 years to think about it, but it being underwater in this weird bowl shape, it's just kind of a cool idea and a really fun visual. But now that we're moving into what could only be described as the end game of One Piece, with Shanks making his move for the grand treasure itself and Luffy setting sail with Yamato and Po as his new crewmate,
I dead ass that too.
ending to this overall
But
arc.
she probably gotta
I think
stay
my
because of
experience
what's gonna
with Wano
happen
has
in
been
Wano.
brilliant overall. Despite the midpoint of the raid itself being extremely slow and dry, in my opinion, with paneling that Nico Robin would have trouble deciphering, okay, maybe that was a bit too, was that too far? Maybe it was too far. I genuinely had a very good time reading this arc over the last couple of years. I can now safely say that I've been a fan of this
Yeah,
series
Wano
for
been
years.
alright.
How crazy is that? And I can't wait to see how this one ends.
The last time I seen anybody hype or not hype or people really talking about One Piece when Luffy was fighting Doflamingo, that's when people were like, that's the last time I think people were hype, and I just Rosa, and then after that the whole Cake Island stuff is more about Sanji, and then when it was a fight it was just between Luffy and Katakuri. But besides that, then more people were going crazy for the Doflamingo fight before this arc started. Which is
Till
fine.
then,
They're
I've
both
been Toy
they're
Dot
both
Mark.
good.
I'll see you all next time, man. Thanks.
Well, that was totally not more. This is the One Piece movies, Netflix series set. Yeah, that was good. That was nice. All right, I'm finna go put on this because I seen this on Facebook, but I only stop at a certain point. But we about to
Why
watch
don't
it.
women want to cook and clean for the men anymore?
I don't know what's going on here, but shout out to Abba and Preach. You know, boys, give them boys a like. First of all, this shit is always gas.
Because they're tired, bro. They have to go to work every day.
All right, bet.
That's
I'm
not
at the
hard.
booth. Let's see what's going on here.
They're tired.
Yeah, they gotta go to work every day, just like you.
What are they tired of?
Now, I'm going to say this. You can be tired when you come home to cook and clean. I'm not talking about this women enjoy. Men kind of just do it for themselves, too. Like, I hardly know. I would say I think most men don't know how to, a lot of men don't know how to cook really professionally. That's probably not even true. But, like, even for men and women in both situations, if you work 8-10 hours a day, you come home, you're not going to want to feel like getting up to cook a meal and clean up the house. But it's something you have to do. Like, you know, you got to do it for yourself, whether it's at your own pace. Some people clean slower than other people. Some people clean better than other people. Some people don't clean at all. Like, they're just not aware that they make messes and that they don't clean them up. Because there's a lot of people like that. Like, some of these people might be your brothers and sisters or your cousins where they're, like, not really clean or anything. Like, cooking is subjective because people could, like, cooking is very subjective because somebody can make food and I don't really like it, but they still a good cook versus, like, someone else who's, like, maybe who cook food in my culture and I'm like, yeah, they make really good food and stuff like that. So that's very subjective. So
Of working.
but if you don't, then I can understand that you're working hard because not girls are working like just as much, as not longer as guys now. I won't say longer, but they work as much. They make their own money, so they don't want to necessarily be at home cooking and cleaning. They have to be at work all day.
It's not hard. I mean, that shouldn't even be like, I don't even understand the question. Like, they're tired. Aren't you tired when you get home from work?
His face.
They're working every day, so they're tired. That's why I don't want to cook and clean.
My man's just repeating the answer so he can try to figure out if he can have a rebuttal. Why aren't the women cooking and eating, making food no more?
That is.
They're going home and they're tired from work. So you're telling me it's because they're tired from work that they're not cooking and yeah, they're tired.
Yeah, I mean, they're tired. That's what it is.
So what you're trying to tell me is that because they got a job, yeah, that's what I said. So what you're trying to tell me is that because they're tired as a result of having a job, yeah, they're tired. So what? I'm not gonna do it 10 times. We keep repeating it.
You think I want to work 8 hours and then come home and then cook?
I gotta use the bathroom. All right, I'm back. I'm about to move to right now.
I mean, I do it because I have 5 children. But yeah, I mean,
Do you have a woman right now?
What's that?
Do you have a woman right now?
I've been married for over 20 years.
Okay.
20 years?
Did your wife work?
Yeah, absolutely.
You think it's easy peasy like that? Like just saying that it's you not having a woman.
I put it
not
no
knowing
more.
how
I'm not
shit
disputing her.
costs. Like, do you live at your mom's house? That's what I question. Cause the minute you step out of your mama house and you kind of, you like cheese on your shit. Do you like cheese on your food? Do you like that?
Yeah.
You know how much cheese costs nowadays? You like milk in your cereal? You know how much that fucking shit costs?
Milk costs as much as gas now.
Fuck the lights. Cheese, motherfucker, cheese.
Do you like going places?
Going outside costs a lot.
Yeah.
That does.
Oxygen, drinking water.
That does.
Peep game. Peep game. Peep game. When I used to have a 9 to 5, I will go to Cuba in an all-inclusive. It would cost me about $900. It would cost me less than my week here. A week in Cuba cost me less than a week here.
But that's because communism is superior.
Yes, but also it's expensive outside.
He ain't lying. That shit
I
is
don't know.
expensive, bro. We in a
If you
recession
don't
right
get
now.
that
Like, dead ass, we're in a
fucking
recession
thing, I
right
don't know
now.
what you get. They lazy. Nigga, you lazy too. The worst thing is that he just answered his question. Right there. You cut it, but he answered it. He's like, yeah, but I'm tired to go to work. That's why. After I go to work, I'm tired too. That's why I don't want to cook and clean. Then I guess we have a problem then. Then you have to have a job that makes sure that your women don't work in order for her to cook and clean.
Yeah.
The reason why women used to cook and clean,
It's because they didn't
they
work.
didn't have no jobs. That was their job.
Now they
That's
have
it.
jobs.
They didn't go to work. Their work was at home. So I bring the money, you bring the food. And that's fine. There's some people that are still like that. Now, if you want your woman to cook and clean for you, make sure that she cooks and clean for you.
And then even then, that's like, when you really think about it, 9 days most women work. So even if, like you can say like, oh, they don't do that no more. You gotta be aware of the climate where it's at now. They work now. They don't have to stay home anymore. You know, some of them can't stay home at that. They have to go to work. Like it's not that they want to. Sometimes they have to do it. So in order for them to be what you want, you gotta go back to how it was, which is not how it is now, where you make all the bread and she just sits home. That's if she wants to. Like nowadays, girls are like even thinking it from a nigga standpoint. They be like, I don't want to be a stay-at-home wife and be a bum. They consider being a bum, even though that's not what it is. Like it's different for okay. I would say for this, it's not frowned upon for a girl to seek to be a housewife. It is not actually. It's probably more encouraged if her lifestyle is geared towards that versus a man that feels like, yeah, I think I want to be a stay-at-home dad. He's gonna be looked at crazy. So at the same time, you gotta understand like women nowadays want to work. So it's not like they don't have to, but when they want to work, they have to understand that you may not be home, you may not be able to cook and clean or rear the children as much as you used to before you were able to look for a job that may pay you, or a job that needs you to be at somewhere 8 to 10 hours a day, sometimes even 12. So also people gotta understand like they keep trying to like go back. Like the point is we should fix the dating scene for what it is now and not trying to go back to how things were. That's just not how it is no more. It changed from that for a reason. So the dynamic in the U.S. is different now. Like everybody's kind of put in the same box. Like most people don't have money. Like we're in a recession right now. Economy is terrible. So it's going to play a role on relationships too moving forward. Of what we prioritize that's important or even healthy. So my girl wanting to be at work instead of being home all day to cook and clean is her choice. I don't have no choice of that. If I were to make 100,000 a year and she still wants to work to make 50, I would tell you don't have to, but that's not really my option anymore. And like I want like it's when they couldn't find a job, now they can. So even for me, like my girl, she does hair, she does all that stuff. I could never stop her from doing that because that's always something she wants to do, and she makes a lot of money from it because hair business is very lucrative. So even for me, I can't even stop her to be like, hey, I want you to be a stay-at-home mom because that's not what she wants for herself. So you can say it's a problem, but sometimes you just gotta just take it as it is, bro. That's the world we live in. I'm young. I grew up where women were mostly in the house. They didn't like. I'm not saying like I'm that old, but you know that was a common belief that hey, women in the house, guy go work. That's how it works. But now it's like women go to work, and more guys are probably not even working or even like making that much money, or they're probably making just as much as the girls now. So not even much of a difference between us in the world we playing now. Now it's more like I see it's like becoming more the middle thing now, like where women can do man roles and men are even becoming more. Which is funny because I used to watch an Animal Planet show where they said like they projected in like the next 10 to 15 years while I was a kid that more men are going to be likely to be stay at home. Not all men, but they're going to be a rise of stay at home dads where they just take care of the shit at home while the women probably works. Which is, hey, if it works for you, it works for you. If it don't, it don't. That's how I feel about it. Like I'm never gonna like shame another person on how their relationship works unless it's like detrimental to them or it's not what they traditionally looking for. Because a lot of people when they go into a relationship, they're going to with like the traditional this and that. But might be your case. You might marry or you might be attracted to a man or marry a man who just doesn't make enough or would never make enough or as much as you. If you consider settling, then I guess. But it's up to you with that person. I'm a person, man. I believe, bro. You love who you love through thick and thin, no matter what they got. I know that sounds like corny where people like there's no such thing as unconditional love, but your mama love you, you know. Like I would say, yeah, maybe your mom could, as a man in this world, maybe your mom could love you unconditional. But I'm pretty sure that your mom is also a woman, so she probably there's probably more girls like that who are like willing to be like I honestly don't care, but it depends on what goes on. But I'm gonna continue because I've been rambling. I ain't even smoked yet.
If that's what she wants to do, first and foremost, get you a girl that knows how to cook and clean. Then after that, get you someone that has the time to cook and clean.
Yep.
What's step 3?
Just let her cook and clean and pay the bills. That's it.
So what you're saying is, if they don't have a job, they have the energy to be able to cook and clean.
What I'm saying is, with the prices of everything and stuff, nowadays, rent, electricity bill, gas bill, gas that you have to put in your car, groceries, with the amount of money it costs now. I don't know what kind of job you're gonna. Let's say you live in New York. Your rent is gonna.
Yeah,
be
pray for
between
New York, boy. 3 bands to 5 bands.
200. Your rent is gonna be 2,000, 2,500 a month to
Infinity and beyond. Buzz Lightyear.
For a fucking cabinet.
What
You paying 1,500. You paying 2,000.
But and
Bruh.
I said 2,500.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure there ain't nothing left at 2,500 for
There's a bunch of New Yorkers being like, where, motherfucker, a closet?
Yeah, where exactly.
Yeah.
Even the closet
So it's gonna
costs
be. It's
3K.
gonna be. So let's say you're a New Yorker.
Fucking closet,
and
fucking
you have
cabinet.
A 2-bedroom apartment. That's what's gonna be like what? $35, $100. Fine, you got that, and you're just one person paying that. I don't know what kind of a job you're gonna have, because after that you have to add insurance, you have to have electricity and all of that. So you have to be top dollar living in an apartment.
You gotta be top
having a
G,
girl
man.
that cooks and cleans.
You gotta have a
Where
Bugatti.
you could be.
You gotta be top G. You gotta have a Bugatti. You feel me? You gotta make sure. Hold on, let me put this out. You gotta have a Bugatti. You know. You gotta make sure she wears a collar. You know. Damn. I need more talking. I need to watch more YouTube videos. Cause he's gonna come back. That nigga's not gonna be banned. Excuse me. Yeah, he's not gonna be banned, but yeah, that's crazy though. Like the pressure, it's not even the pressure in society right now to make more bread. It's just at this point, that's all is like kind of. Money is a big, unfortunately, in this world, money is a big factor on how people, like for the most part, I'm not saying everybody is, but how you gonna live for the rest of your life. Money is a big factor. For some people, like for me, I never had a personal relationship with money, and people could be like, oh well, that's just cause you're not like trying to grind or you trying like that's what they assume. But there's different reasons why people like have their own personal attachment to money. I never been the type of person who's like really cared for it, like in the sense of if I have a lot of it or not. I just know what it can be used for is what is the most important part for me with my relationship with money. Just the actual concept of money is just kind of stupid to me, but I understand why we need it. It's just that like it is a big predicator on like where your life is at, bro. You need that bread to be able to get like shit done, like no matter what. Like to get just for me to even be on this whole set with the computer, the PC, everything, I'm gonna need some bread. I can't say oh money doesn't matter, but I'm just saying my personal relationship with money isn't more of I would do things just for money. There's things I consider more important than money. My happiness and my time, foremost. Like I put those above money any day, like and my own personal beliefs. Like I wouldn't be doing like foul shit just for any type of bread. Cause I hear people be like, I'll do this if somebody give me this money. I'm like, bro, you got to live with the fact that you did that. But like, yeah, I got the money though. Like that's not me. Like I'm not gonna do some wild shit for that. But it is a big predicator on how your life will be and how it will go, how people view you, how you feel sometimes. Sometimes having a lot of money makes you feel good, no lie. And I can understand that may change the outlooks on other people how they view you too. It may be better, for better or worse. You might find out things about people once you get it or once you lose it. That's how money works. That's why I'm saying I don't have a personal relationship with it because it's not something I like even care about. When I die, I'm not taking no bread with me. That's just what it is. So I just know it's a powerful force in this world, but it's not something I really have a personal relationship with. That's about it.
Two people in a team, both of y'all working, both of y'all separating all the.
Today's video is brought to you by T.H. Henley.
We love Preach, but I'd rather not. Now imagine if I didn't pay for premium. Now I had like mad ads, anyways. And then you added a 5-minute one to that.
For the marriage, what do you guys do? What do you
My boy look funny. I'm not gonna lie.
I don't understand the question. She does what needs to be done that day if she has time to do it, and if she doesn't, I do it. I do what needs to be done that day, and if I don't have time to do it, she does it. But roles, I don't know what you
How do you not know what roles are in a marriage? You're married for 20 years.
You see, the issue with this guy is, one, he doesn't have any of the practical experiences, and he's speaking to someone who is in there, and he's coming in with a complete closed mind, like, I already know the answers.
Yeah.
It's like, at least be open-minded.
Yeah, he's asking questions like that just to like probably reaffirm. So if he were probably saying something similar to what he like, he would be like, yeah, he'll elaborate on it. But since he's hearing things that he doesn't necessarily would expect it, this guy is like, yeah. So I say too, like, my mom and dad is married. Their relationship and what they do is like different than what I like expect for I would say nuclear American Eurocentric family. So my parents are Haitians. They're not from here. The way they conduct their marriage, the way they are, is totally different from Americans. And even I peeped that with dating American girls, since I'm Haitian, so I'm Haitian American. I'm supposed to both cultures, and it's way different. Like talking to girls in Haiti versus talking to girls in America, even Haitian girls who are born in America and Haitian girls who are born in Haiti that comes to America, it's different. The way they go about, what type of guy they want to be with this and that is different. So I guess it's just the environment you in also. Because if I live in Miami and I was the brokest nigga in Miami, nobody's fucking with me. Nobody don't know my name. Same thing with LA, New York. It doesn't fucking matter. But let me be somebody with a lot of bread. I could be somebody, but I have to have money to back it up with that status. I can't be like a well-known guy and then I drive a 1950 Bugatti, something like that. But it's just your environment, who you go with, your own set. It's like there's a lot of factors that go into that. But this man talking about like, oh yeah, what roles you don't know about in a man. I'm like, nigga, are you married? So this is a person who said he been married for 20 years. He said, oh, you've been married for 20 years, so how you don't know what role is? I'm like, you know what happens in the course of 20 years while you're married? It's not just the name. It's like what it means to your own personal relation. Marriage might mean two different things to different people.
You haven't even
Two
been
sets
through
of
it.
different people.
I'm not saying the other guy's inherently right, but you even haven't been through it. And you talking like, what do you mean you don't have roles? It's like, why don't you ask him straight up, like, okay, well, tell me more about that. How does that actually function? I want to hear your perspective. It's not that.
It's not that.
This is one of them lives where it's like, come on so I can tell you what it is, even though you're not an expert in the field.
Oh, he is an expert in the field.
No, this is an off-brand Kevin Samuels.
Ha!
Yeah.
This is somebody who found out somebody died and said, oh, there's a market I can capitalize on. That's what happened.
That's crazy.
That's all that happened.
But there are people who do that. I wouldn't blame her.
So, me watching this dude,
There's
I
a
feel
power
like most of
vacuum
this
when
stuff
that
is
man
goofy.
passed away.
You
RP.
guys don't have
Because
any
those don't
roles?
exist. Because those don't exist. Like, I'm not white.
Ha! He said Eurocentric.
What?
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Ain't got nothing to do with white. This is rich and poor, baby. That's what it is.
I'm not a white Christian.
What?
Man. I don't.
What are you talking
Roles.
about? I'm not white. What does that have to do with anything?
Oh, because you're trying to live up to like some white supremacist ideal of.
Okay, you went left right there. Right there, you went left.
So
that's
I won't call it white supremacy. I would say yes. Just like I said, from different cultures. If you're from a different culture, you would know that marriage in certain other places are like different or what it means than it is in America. And if he says yeah, I would say that, because if you had a Mexican wedding or a Haitian wedding, or you had a white person's wedding or a black person wedding, I don't know what he means by in context to what conversation he was having prior, but that I can see what they're like, what are you talking about? Because it's like this have nothing to do with that. We're just not talking about like the roles and stuff. So he's bringing up something that's also maybe leading into that too, because sometimes it might be different for people. And like in community, like the Jewish community might do things like how the way they deal with their marriage. The Italians, Irish people, people from Welsh. We don't know how they with Poland. We don't know how they are in their marriage versus us, who are like born in like the Caribbeans or Africa or Asia, or the Middle East, how the wedding might be different. Or just marriage in general.
I see where you're coming
I'm just
from.
saying the wedding
But
is
no,
the initial
That's not really what it is and where it comes
interest
from.
into marriage.
But I see where you say why you
Ceremony.
say that.
I would
but
say ceremony.
God,
No, no,
both of these sides
no.
are so fucking insufferable.
No,
Just-
bro. No.
You were doing
That-
fine at the beginning.
It's like what are they talking about? Yeah. It's like it didn't come up now. There's no more thought process beside it. It sounded like they wanted to say something radical and then have it. Niggas trying to be viral. It's not. I guess that's what it is. It sounds like niggas just trying to be viral. And it's working. And that shit knows on Preacher Album. They could be like, oh well, Preacher Album review my video. That's probably all they wanted.
Fine.
Goofy ass shit. What's up? White supremacy.
Sneeko probably's gonna watch this on his own and react to it. Everybody is.
You would
Yes,
fine.
the
fine.
reason why for fucking millennia, okay, women have been staying at home with the kids and taking care of everything is because of white supremacy. Even before the white man ever landed in Africa, it's because of white supremacy. Jesus.
in every
Not every, but most.
in every in that no, you're right. Not in every, but in most places on Earth. Before that, it was like that. So you bringing that shit up,
Corny.
Yeah.
but no.
Yeah.
What are you talking
And you live in
about?
America.
I don't subscribe
Nobody
to
said
that.
nothing about no supremacy.
Oh, you just
Teamwork makes
did.
the dream work, Frank. We a team.
Oh,
roles.
oh, never mind. The voice. All right.
What do you mean there ain't no roles?
It's not that hard to understand. You said, why do women not want to cook and clean? You're tired. You have to go to work.
Okay.
I answered that question.
Okay.
You said, what are your roles?
Why don't you
You're a
ask a
team. You don't
woman?
have any roles.
If there's something that needs to be
Why didn't they just ask a woman that? There's two dudes arguing with a role of a woman. On the role of a woman, I'm not saying a man can't say it is, but if you really want to ask why don't she do this, ask her. She's probably not happy. She's probably depressed. Who knows what's going on? She's an emotional being. She don't feel like it. She's tired. Just like you said, she's working. Fella, she's working. Sometimes she's just working. That's it. And then the way everything is, all these like diseases, everybody staying inside the house type shit. It's like everybody have time to like have a conversation with themselves and like hold to beliefs that like kind of probably even radical extreme. So like he's not being open minded to like you can't ask questions and not be open minded. I never asked that. There are people who do that, like even in day-to-day life, they'll actually questions to just confirm what they're believing. That's about it. Like nothing else. Like if you tell them, like, yeah, I don't like, or like, well, contrary to this and that, and they like blink stare. But yeah, this is that. I'm like, okay, so you didn't even give a fuck what I had to say. You just want to hear yourself talk. So there are people like that. So be careful.
built in the house. Who builds it? You or your wife?
Depends on what it is.
I'm not gonna cap. I've seen women and men together build houses. I'm not saying it don't happen. It's not often, as every single time, but for the most part, I get what he's saying. He's saying like, yeah, the majority of it came down to building a house. It'll be that, but to say like she probably won't be like any part of his cap. We all know it's cap, bro. We all know your wife may buy dinner one night. That she can do that, bro. Come on, chill out. Like sometimes it's the hyper. I could say even hyper masculinity. That's a little too much. But hey, if he say he has valid things to say, I'm open to listen to what he's saying. But I can also like discern what he's saying. I can, as they say, what is it? Agree to disagree? Yeah, I could do that.
What do you mean depends on what it is?
Like if it's a toy for the kids, you know what I'm saying? My wife's better at putting stickers on, so she builds it. But if we're talking about
That's
like,
not
you know what I'm saying,
building nothing, man.
like, well, I mean, I'm sorry you feel
What?
that.
Man was trolling him at the end.
Yeah, I think he
No, I don't
was.
think he was.
With the stickers and the
I don't
toys?
think he was. I don't think he was.
I think he was
'Cause
trolling.
He knows. Each side knows where each side is going.
But they
Yes,
both.
Each side
I'm
is
trolling.
no.
But the thing is though, if you gonna ask me questions and bullshit me, I'm gonna bullshit you too. I could just joke. That was a joke. They're both, well, I don't know about cousin the glasses, but I know cousin thing he just lied at this point.
No, but they're not. Trolling is an intent of this is being disingenuous. This is not troll. This is not me being like, ha, I'm gonna laugh.
Okay,
at
sure.
it. You know what I mean?
This
So
guy's
it's not.
troll is a
It's
thing
just
about it,
because no, but it changes the mindset where you're from. When you're trolling, you come from a yeah, I'm not serious. This comes from a, no, I'm not gonna budge. One is trolling, the other one is being disingenuous. It changes the intention of what you're doing. Probably the end meaning what you're doing and what you're saying is probably
the one who's trolling is the guy, the
same.
The guy at
but
the
your
bottom.
intentions in the back, they're not the same.
Yeah.
So this guy is not trolling. He's being, I don't want to. No, in my household, I build shit.
My whole point watching this is just people are so rigid with how they view the world, not recognizing the world isn't what it used to be 60 years ago. It's not because of feminism or this and that. The economy is where it's at. Both people got to work. Both people got to have a job. All right? To me, just I listen to this talk and everything's so rigid. So it's uninteresting to me.
On both sides.
Yeah.
That's the thing, it's both sides. And dude was saying some good stuff at the beginning, but then after that he went left. Oh my God. He swerved. Yeah. There's not much to say to this thing. I mean, it's really logical.
That's up.
Go outside. This world is really not made right now to be alone. It sucks.
I'm gonna tell you this was not made for nobody. Like it's that as you get what you take out of it. That's why they have the term if life, or even they say God, if God or life gives you lemon, you make lemonade, bro. That is what it is. If somebody don't know how to make lemonade, they're gonna be thirsty, or they're just not gonna have lemonade. The worst they can do is not have lemonade for me, or know how to make it. But how you view the current state in the world right now doesn't matter to the majority.
Wait, it's really hard to live alone and make it and getting by. Yep. I don't know if you do this shit from your mama basement or you capping, bruv, or where you live, or you got some kind of privilege, but go outside. Go outside. Go do some groceries. Go outside and go live. Go pay electricity bills and go have a little bit of experience. Go live a little. Go live a little, and then after that talk to me about girls don't want to do that. Go. There was a reason why women was not working.
I'll also say, if you are one of these high-value men who have so many options, this isn't even a bother for you.
Yeah.
It should be easy for you to find a woman who cooks and cleans.
Or pay someone to do it.
Bruh, even when I was poor, I was able to find a bunch of these women. It shouldn't be that hard. You've got so many options you can exercise, right?
Yeah.
So why are you sitting here crying about why don't women cook and clean?
Because you got game. Yeah, that's a good.
And no cap, I'm gonna say that they do say go for like the 19, 20-year-olds and they complain why they don't even like do that stuff either. So I'm just like, it's like both sides. I'm not saying every talking point, but I get what they're talking about. And I'm not saying everybody's talking point. I won't always think somebody who has something to say that I may not always agree with is something I can't agree with or have the time to listen to. So I always say this. I get what they're talking about, but it's just times change, bro. It's not shit not where it used to be. Like, it's not. And the sooner people realize that, the more you just accept what's going on, and just whatever happens, whatever situation you're in, it's probably unique to you or not at all. So don't be swept up into what stay in your lane, bro. Watch your plate. That's the whole point. Ain't no point in asking sometime unless it's not to improve or people actually have like a stock where you can ask for help, like ask questions and all that stuff. But it's just that if you're not coming into it to like actually like get to a point, what's the whole point of you just saying what's on your mind? That only that.
You got options. Why are you crying? The only reason you are is because you're not one of them niggas. Because people who are making all this money and have options, they're not complaining. They have so many fucking options.
The minute you're at that position,
just stop.
That was the point right there.
Even when I was like poor, like there's so many women I met who were down to cook and clean and wanted to live that kind of lifestyle. So this is such nonsense.
You didn't get it. That's it. Which is fine. It's fine. It's okay.
Maybe you need to date some more. Maybe you need to start trying to exercise a couple of those options. Because I don't think you have. And I'm also gonna lie. A lot of single women have some nasty ass places. Y'all some dirty motherfuckers. But thankfully, I've had the luxury of dating enough to meet women who do keep their place exceptionally clean and who do cook very well. So I just don't buy this narrative.
We know that some of y'all have nasty ass places because you take selfies.
Yep.
You have to understand that not everything is free in life. Right? There's nothing really free in life. Nothing. So if you want her to cook and clean, you gotta do something. She doesn't just freely cook and clean. What do you bring? What is gonna make her cook and clean?
Yep.
Make her cook and clean. You know what? There was a meme that was talking about, oh, woman, go make me a sandwich.
Go ahead.
I never asked my woman to make me a sandwich. I don't have to. I'm not.
Hey, facts. She just gonna make it for you. I mean, if she makes one, I don't know. Never had it. Yeah, I see what you're talking about. I already think about it. I never had to ask my girl either. She actually asks me. She's like, "You want a sandwich?" And I'm like, yeah, but we don't eat sandwiches like that. But it's like just food in general. Like when she makes a plate, I don't. When food is done or like wherever food is brought into our house, she just makes an extra plate already, so I don't have to worry about like that type of situation.
Bragging?
So
I'm not boasting.
yeah, it's not bragging.
I don't
or
have
anything. Don't have to.
Why? Because if she feels like making me a sandwich, she's gonna make me a sandwich. And guess what? When I feel like making a sandwich to her, I'm gonna make her a sandwich. If I feel like brewing her a coffee, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
If she does it, if she's in the kitchen, she asks me to. I don't need that. But you want to dictate, mother? I don't even.
Hey, I like breakfast. I wake up in the morning and make some breakfast. It's what it is. I'm gonna make extra. I'm gonna make a plate. She eat. I eat. We good. We feel good.
Have to ask. But y'all complaining. Y'all the ones with the games. Y'all the ones to know how. Make her do it. I don't have to spit game. I don't have to do none of that shit. Why? Because my dad didn't have to. And that's probably what I seen. And I just see my dad to this day bring shit to the table.
I'm
He
dead.
puts my mama coffee. He puts my mama coffee. And vice versa. I don't know where y'all been and how y'all been raised and by who and what examples y'all.
Preach gotta understand, bro. We're Haitians, dog. That's just what it is. It's different. Like the way we may conduct things is maybe different how other people are looking at it now. Some of us still hold the value of our parents who were born in Haiti and we weren't. So, or have got accustomed to a lifestyle they never will be accustomed to as much as we are because we've been living in this world, in this country longer than they have. So, I can understand where my parents would be like. I'll tell them like when I was like 18, like the struggles of like sharing things that was going on. I'm like, you know how much rent costs over here? As much as it is at home. And I'm like, you guys have like 3 bedrooms. I only have like, I only have 1 room. I was just like, and my mom like, yep, that's how it is. And I'm like, damn. So it's just like stuff, even like that. It's just different for everybody.
all got, that's what I had an example. Yes, it's my privilege. That's what I had as an example. So that's why it's really weird for me to see that happening. But hey, to each their own.
Let us know what you guys think in the comments.
Bye-bye, Alright, I got another one. This one's a long one, but FD Signing Fair. Shout out this man. I watched a portion of it when it was premiering, but it was like towards the end, so I didn't get the whole thing. But I guess he just understand the manosphere from his perspective. So this is not like general outlook or how I believe, because I don't even know what his whole thing was about. But I could actually like listen to it. I want to see what he got to say. You know, fellow black man. Oh my boy.
Less this time around. This also won't be the like perfect takedown of the black manosphere that I think people want, because why do you need specific understandings or reasons to take down the black manosphere? Maybe on some level, sure, and I'll probably get into some of that stuff. But for the most part, as I
take down the
looked
black
into this
manosphere
world and researched it, the idea of
there was some things in the end that he was saying that I don't know. I don't kind of agree on, but that's like way into that. Let me see how long it's gonna take.
With these folks,
but it's interesting topic.
And a waste of time, and a waste of.
So I'm gonna stay on this long.
And really less important than examination of this space, and that's what this video is gonna more be about, because I think it's more useful to understand the black manosphere, have some knowledge of its few virtues, and to get a better scope and understanding of its many flaws. With that in mind, to my white fans, I ask that you chill out in the comments for this one. Not to be rude, but low key, this ain't none of y'all business. That's one of the reasons why I never wanted to make this video. I don't mind taking a hit on views or the algorithm or whatever. This just feels like a weird topic area to broadcast as widely as my channel now broadcasts. Because this is going to be a very insular kind of in-house conversation, and you probably be missing a lot of context for it. Hell, a lot of black folks, if you're under 25, will miss a lot of the context. So it is what it is. To my folks that usually stream or react to videos of mine, I ask that you leave this one off the menu, please and thank you. So, many of you know that I released 3 hours worth of...
Well, to be honest, I don't give a fuck.
Anti-manosphere content in the last couple of months, along with supplemental type stuff on my side channel. But only maybe about 15 minutes of this was specifically about the Black Manosphere. And this garnered maybe a dozen hours worth of response videos from various, mostly very small Black Manosphere channels. Most of these responses were overviews of the entire first video, which was really greatly not explicitly about the White Manosphere, but about the force that wills it into existence. As such, there was a lot of nitpicking and a lot of completely agreeing, but acting like you don't agree with some of my points. Some classic misogyny, some homophobia, some transphobia.
If a black woman would have kept her mouth shut back then, you would not be having World War I and World War II.
And not much in terms of critique that made me feel compelled to really respond. Except for the passionate and dedicated fans of some of these channels who have been all up in my comment section ever since, really embarrassing themselves, like begging for me to talk to their faves directly. I don't understand if y'all know how y'all look, but the more I look into the manosphere, I realize that a lot of these people don't understand how they are perceived by the rest of the world outside of the manosphere. Some dude called me a coward, and I swear all I could hear was Mendart from Dexter's Laboratory.
Excuse me, sir, but may I please relocate myself to a closer location to the board so I can achieve the optimum effect of your education?
I have a homeboy who sounds like Mandark. Now I always remind this nigga that, bruh. No matter what, I'm like, that's why he sound like Mandark. He's just like, who? Oh, bruh. Imagine somebody like that is like, you just is like, you coward. I'm like, what the fuck? Niggas funny, bruh.
Just a lot of incredibly serious, balanced, logical men that, you know, I know they are. But really mad that I wasn't interested in talking to their favorite Black incel creators. And really, I'd have probably left it at that if not for one point made in a piece, a 4-hour-long piece from 2 men whom I seem to share a decent amount of fan overlap with, making this particular point.
When I tell you I have hardcore Trump voting conservative, I got hardcore, Black revolutionary. I got brothers who are liberal. I got brothers who are apolitical. I got brothers who are Hebrew Israelites, Muslims, who are atheists. You know what I'm saying? There's the one common factor that these men have.
I wonder what he's going to say. They're all connected together for what?
That they're concerned about the quality of life for Black men and boys, and they're interested in being able to understand and articulate what we experience.
Concerned for Black men and boys. Wow, that is not what I was expecting from this space, a space that spends so much time and energy complaining about Black women. Concerned for Black men and boys seems like a valiant reason to do anything. It's the reason why I do a lot of my content. So surely we have a lot more in common, right?
There is no leap of faith of starting OnlyFans. I'm sorry, bro. We have to culturally and especially genetically re-engineer Black women, you guys. The only way we can do this is with non-Black women.
Wow.
Socially conservative Black men. We can't get together. Well, then go be a concubine to the 4 guys. Let her stop. Talk about 4 guys in the mating act. They're attracted to 4 guys. Well, go be their concubine. Well, if there's 50 women after 4 guys, then get in the rotation and shut up.
And now that the world is kicking your ass, now all of a sudden you can bear witness to it. You fucking disgust me. I said it before in my stream and I will say it again. We don't want submission, we want worship.
Ugh. We'll come back to that. That said, this criticism was...
I don't know about that. I don't want to be worshipped.
Misconstruing of my point. It was legit. Not the last part, maybe, but the part where they called out how I had flattened all of the Black manosphere into one easily digestible concept. I realized I did that, and that wasn't just wrong and inaccurate, it was also missing out on a lot of important and useful analysis to the issue of what the Black manosphere specifically is and the unique problems it presents compared to its white counterpart. There's way more to the Black manosphere than I initially gave credit for. It's all bad, mind you. Like, this isn't going to turn out the way I think people thought it was, but I do think there's a lot more to it to talk about. But the fact that they wanted me to talk about it speaks volumes to how unaware many of these guys are that they would actually want me to go deeper into the history of this space, considering how cringe and embarrassing and crazy this space is. But they weren't wrong. I oversimplify some things. And I can't promise I won't do it again, because despite the runtime for this video, I still had to leave a lot of stuff out. I don't make 3-4 hour long reactions to other people's creations. I make my own. I'm what you call entertaining. So for the sake of entertainment, I had to leave some details out. At times, I'm sure you guys will pause the video and fill in the gaps. But I'm gonna do my best. And I've also brought a few folks with me, as I often do, with a relatively wide perspective on the manosphere and its unique problems and how they relate to issues of black men in America in general.
When people come into the manosphere, there's always something going on in their personal lives. I mean, sometimes it can just be a money grab, and most of the time it can be like just social isolation, breakup, or just difficulties, in their dating lives. It varies. I don't know, because at the end of the day, you only see them when they turn the camera on.
That was something explicitly that people really bought into in the 80s. I think when it started switching over was when Run DMC eclipsed all the first old school acts. And then 5 years later, by the time you reach the late 80s, people like even Chuck D was out there saying hip hop is reclaiming black masculinity.
Right.
We need to see strong men because that's been pushed out of the culture. And as a teenager at that time, I bought into all that talk.
Yeah.
I think when you're of a certain age, even if you are intellectually
That's
curious and trying to
influence
study and learn,
over the
if
younger
everyone around
mind.
you is working from
So like
the
people
same
like they say like
fundamental
Andrew
substance,
Tate.
it can take time to step
was
outside of that and say,
half black.
Why is that our baseline
And
assumption? Like the
We know our condition. We just may not have the tools or the frameworks to articulate it in a way to somebody who hasn't experienced it firsthand. I say that to say that you have a lot of young boys who know their condition, but they don't have an explanation for their condition. They don't have a framework to understand it. And so when they get somebody that has a platform and understands not only where they are, but can give them an explanation for why they're in the condition that they're in, they're going to go that way, especially if it's somebody that looks like them.
It's going to sound a little abrupt thinking about it, but black men are never going to be seen as progressive enough. It doesn't matter what it is. If all the men today became empathic, understanding, and engaged in women's issues, the conditions and the situations that black communities still have to navigate as it relates to domestic violence and harm and incarceration will continue because they're systemic. And those systemic factors create attitudinal assumptions on black men. So we could gather all the men in the world, black men, and have them move in a certain way, but because how black men are seen and understood is ideological, that's going to persist.
I want to put out there that their participation in this research in no way is an endorsement.
So I get it. It's like, all right. And I see what he getting it from, like a black man perspective, because I'm a black man too. But the way he's viewing it is like, damn, I can't put this in words. That everybody's more worried about the idea of a black man than the actual black man himself. And sometimes even the black man himself is more worried about the image of a black man than what he is as he is now. Because some people are like, I know some, they're saying like 2 white for the black kids and 2 black for the white kids. Some dumb shit like that. When you like growing up in middle school, high school, it's like any type of anime, you like really on that side, like comic books and stuff. I wasn't like that, but I understood it and knew it just cause it was entertaining. But there's some people who like really like that stuff, so they're like, come to school with a headband on or Naruto around and stuff like that, and then they'd be like, oh, you don't act black or something like that. I'm like, what the fuck? How is black person supposed to act, you dumbass? You fucking black too, stupid. It's like, oh, y'all do this and that. Like, you have like a conversation that like that's not about like things centric around, I guess, like people talk about it. And it's not even like me personally, but I've seen kids in my classroom who are mostly black get like I won't say bullied on, but like kind of you can say like that too. So and then I like consider like the ideal type of how a black guy's supposed to be. And then growing up through life, even after school, I heard like, oh, you're not like, you don't act like this or you don't act like that. And mind you, I'm a 6 foot, like big, like 200, over 200 pounds black guy. So I get that assumption that like, oh, I look like I pop off on people, even though I just don't talk. So that's just what it is. So it's like, oh, he look like he's waiting to do something. I'm like, what the fuck? It's like dumb shit like that, and even though I'm just like vibing or just like that as thinking about what I'm finna eat today.
Of my rhetoric or opinions, I've heard that some of you black manosphere folks can be a little catty, a little, maybe dare to say, unmanly.
Feminine.
So I don't want them to be the target of your ire. This isn't
feminine. That's what they say.
That said, I know you guys don't want me to preamble for 15 minutes. We're gonna jump right on it.
Yeah.
How come you ain't never liked me? Like?
hell said I got to like you? What law is there say I got to like you? Want to stand up in front of my face and ask a damn fool-ass question like that? Talking about liking somebody. Come here, boy, when I talk to you.
All of my initial opinions about the manosphere that I discussed in the previous videos still stand. The manosphere, black or otherwise, is at its core a byproduct of men aligned to a specific performance of masculinity.
I ain't gonna lie, I was like looking at his shit, I don't know what the hell, but whatever.
Under patriarchy. A performance that they aren't good at, and so they seek a variety of ways to improve said performance or to cope with the consequences of what a poor performance of masculinity means for them. This coping usually comes in the form of vilifying, demonizing, or just generally blaming women and possibly falling deeper into more harmful, more fringe, or more regressive or possibly even aggressive belief systems that can turn into violence. However, the blackness in the black manosphere adds numerous layers of complexity to this framework. For one, being a black male automatically disqualifies you from ever reaching true hegemonic status in a white supremacist society. As I said before, even the most successful, traditionally masculine, educated, moneyed, good-looking black men will be routinely subjugated to racial indignity and submission under a white supremacist hierarchy on the basis of being black alone, let alone any other thing that might intersect with that black male identity. See Ryan Coogler being handcuffed and detained for simply trying to withdraw money from a bank. Terry Crews being sexually assaulted and then publicly blamed for his own assault. Or the entire presidency of Barack Obama, where he was still met with racial indignity as the most powerful man in the world. Regardless of a black man's status and behavior, he will never be a real man under white supremacy. However, that doesn't stop a lot of us from trying. Best case scenario, we redefine masculinity and manhood to fit our reality and our needs, or the needs of our communities. But it's probably a lot more common that many black men fall into scripts about masculinity that we've been fed by our elders or media or society as a whole. And this leads to a lot of conflict in our own experiences with the world around us and with black women who also greatly desire a performance of us that is similar to white patriarchy. And this is where much of this conflict arises. The fact that black men are essentially being held to a standard of patriarchal performance that they cannot keep up with, even from many black women, especially in the modern day where black women are gaining access to higher levels of education and economic status that black men are more intensely barred from. When you combine that conflict with legitimate issues in the family court system and a modern media landscape, especially social media, that makes black men feel disempowered in speaking up effectively, you see where the black manosphere gets most of its juice. Because at its core, the black manosphere is a battering ram for this frustration, for this conflict, to butt against black women and blame them. And
it's like the feminist movement. Now that I'm peeping, it's like the feminist movement that include black women in it, but it's not really for them. I mean, they're gonna have to redefine it in a different way, or do it in a different way, because we have to do it our way. Every community handles their own situation their way. So I can get what he's talking about. So damn, they're doing it again, but this time is with the manosphere. So it's like there's a group of men on that side, there's just a group of women on that side that has those type of probably ideas about themselves and are more successful and powerful. Oh, hold on. My bad. I'll play the video though.
Attack them because they're an easier target than white supremacy, especially for a lot of these men who have had certain views or certain experiences inform how they see the world. Now here is where we're going to have a pause the video moment. Y'all didn't know this is going to be an interactive video, did you? Many of these black manosphere guys are clout chasers and very thirsty for attention, and they will react to this on their channels, or they're fans who are really a lot like Debate Bro fans, just really thirsty, really get off to the idea that their fave is the big brain, and they will pretty much require their favorite black manosphere figure to respond to this video. Thus, I can expect that this video, much like my last manosphere videos, will get lots of attention and airplay on these channels, and so I want to be helpful and also put you in kind of a weird catch-22 and just give you prompts to pause the video and offer your counter arguments when they seem most appropriate. Here in particular, it'll be interesting because, truth be told, there is a relatively wide variety of belief systems in the manosphere, aside from the one core belief, which we'll get to later. And we can expect that some figures in the black manosphere will argue the virtue and validity of patriarchy, maybe the natural order of men versus women, and maybe they'll pull up some religious angle that helps justify this. Maybe they'll talk about some really explicitly succinct element of history or African history that supports their point without pointing out the vast variety of pieces of history that do not. This also might get low-key homophobic for them. I don't know. Others will come with the classic, we're not a monolith.
We're not a monolith. In fact, black Republicans alone are an extremely diverse group of people.
To point out that while a lot of the black manosphere is undeniably conservative, regressive, and reactionary, that there are others that are more left-leaning or at least centrist and don't desire an explicit connection to traditional white patriarchy, but more so desire freedom and self-determination as a black man. That it's an intersectional feminist falsehood that black men seek white patriarchal power. Valiant and admirable points, all of them, if not for the fact that when you look through a lot of these guys' content, what you mostly see is what I'll call black women's cringe content that explicitly seeks to characterize black women as degenerate or evil or stupid or hating of black men. And although I want to be very clear, these stories and these black women do exist, as I said in the previous video about Abba and Preach, when a large chunk of your content is explicitly designed to create a specific narrative about a group of people, it makes it obvious what your agenda is. These videos serve as ways for them to signal their misogyny to each other and justify it. Because of course, why wouldn't black men feel a certain way about black women if every video they see is of a black woman doing something degenerate or harmful or stupid?
Yeah,
or
it makes everybody look dumb.
But the price is skyrocketing.
I can already tell by the length of the eyelashes, in conjunction with the dexterity.
No lie, we just say that about all girls. Well, at least for me, I don't know about them, but personally, I'm not saying it's whatever, but the long, you could say like, oh, like black girls with lashes and nails. Latinos do, white girls do, Asian girls do. I think it's just a West thing. Like, it's just people on this side that just do that. Like, it just in general, I prefer natural look. Like, but it's not up to me because how she wants to dress at the end of the day, you know. But
of the forehead,
like
bangs, that this will not be an intellectually riveting conversation.
So regardless of the variety of spectrums you may see in the black manosphere from a political standpoint, I don't give much credit to any assertion that any of you are anything but misogynist at your core, and I'll pause here for your response. Or an ad break. In this next section coming up, I'm going to talk a lot about intellectualism. Specifically, I'm going to talk about the fact that I think a lot of you watching this 2.5-hour video, are the type of person that just seeks out knowledge, that you are amused and entertained by your own curiosity, that the idea of learning something new fills you with as much joy as maybe having your favorite meal or catching up with an old friend. With that in mind, I am here to offer you today's sponsor, Curiosity Stream. Curiosity Stream is an
bumper clock. Yeah, fuck that.
Right? A lot of the restrictions that, if you know me, you know you can find on YouTube. So please check that out in the description. I want to say thank you to Nebula for sponsoring the video, and now back to the video. So, all that aside, the element of blackness still has to be considered in discussing the black manosphere and differentiating it from its white counterpart, which is why I first want to point out that figures like an Andrew Tate or Fresh and Fit or Abba and Preach really shouldn't be considered part of the black manosphere, which I think members of, we'll say, the core or first wave of the manosphere
you can say
would
that.
appreciate me pointing out. While all of these men might be considered
Kind
black
of.
and surely have a black audience, I wouldn't call them by any stretch pro-black or even presenting as
you can be black and not
pro-black.
pro-black.
Have been preached, but they're like very fringe in this regard. Tate in particular just happens to look like a swole Damon Wayans, but nothing about him and his content has any type of racial framing. Fresh and Fit are obviously racialized as black men, but both are pretty conservative and openly anti-black at times, not just towards black women, but also employing typical conservative sellout narratives about victim mentality and not seeing color and whatever other bullshit.
Hey guys, the truth, uncomfortable truth nobody wants to hear. The common enemy is the white man. That's what everyone is trying to say. Oh, they have all the privileges. You're white privilege. You're white man. If you're a white male, heterosexual, WASP, you are a public enemy.
Yeah, wasp. I never heard that before. A term calls somebody a white guy a wasp. So that's weird.
I'm here to tell you guys that I think affirmative action a lot of times is BS.
In fact, Fresh and Fit are so coonish that they were officially excommunicated from the black manosphere, as official as this can be, by one of the original founding figures of the pre-modern black manosphere, O'Shea Duke Jackson.
They don't need to be in the manosphere at all. These guys need to be gone.
O'Shea Duke
O'Shea
Jackson.
going off.
Duke Jackson. Okay, so before I go any further, I need to get something off my chest. Niggas in the Black Manosphere have hilarious names.
Well, I would say this about like anybody who wants to comment and is of it. If your talking points can be coonish or sound coonish, then that's just up to you. If you have talking points, you got to be able to back it up with whatever you got to say. Now, I would say maybe they do need to have a talk. That's why after this, if he wants to make a video on them like this, there should be like some type of conversation going on. We can understand you can judge the videos, but how somebody is and what they believe might be two different things too. That's also true. So I'm not trying to like cover for anybody, but they just need to have a talk. Just hop on Discord, hop on something, and it'll be a lot easier for them to just have a talk.
Well, I'm no way some champion of thoughtful naming practices. I feel pretty good about Feek the Signifier, aka FD Signifier. Like, I didn't start it with a lot of forethought, and when I started understanding more about branding and name recognition, I recognized that FD, had a better malleability than Feek the Signifier because it's shorter. Anyway, my point is, I give myself a 7 out of 10, 6 out of 10 if I'm, being unfair maybe to myself. Everyone's name doesn't have to have a great meaning or anything, but I cannot help that members, especially of the old Black Manosphere, have names that are somewhere between a black superhero and a black porn star, such as Sergeant Willie Pete, Angry, the Green Gorilla, Mumia Obsidian Ali, O'Shea Duke Jackson, and BGS Ibmore. I'm sure that one must mean something important. I'm sure this is a huge gotcha moment for BGS. He was like, see, the nigga didn't even know that BGS stood for Black Girls Suck. I don't know what it means. I'm sure it means something important. I'm sure. That said, unless you're deep in the Black Manosphere, which I assume very few of you are, you probably have never even heard of those names, which is mostly a good thing. But
I would say
also,
Umar
this
Jackson.
is somewhat unfair to them in a weird way.
Is that his name? Why does it last name Dr. Umar? I think Umar is, he's like Black Manosphere. Yeah, he's very.
I think those guys and a bunch of other names I'm not even going to bother to mention would want to make it very clear that they are the real Black Manosphere and not guys like Fresh and Fit or Mediocre Tutorials or maybe even a Stephis Code. Although Stephis Code is, I think, an official member of the Black Manosphere from what my research showed me, but he's definitely, from my perspective, part of a newer wave operating in a mostly separate space that I'll get into a bit later. So the question is, why would I bring those guys up and even have art commissioned for them? Especially considering how small they are. Why do they matter? Why are they important? To explain, we got to get into some deep lore. Dr. Aaron G. Fountain was working through his PhD when he started running a YouTube channel called Exposing the Manosphere, which was an offshoot of his graduate studies and freelance journalism work. And he covered the rise of the right in the late 2010s, and in the middle of that, discovered and started to chronicle what was going on in the Black Manosphere. He, like myself, wasn't overly interested in debunking them, but just kind of like, I mean, look at these niggas.
If a black woman would have kept her mouth shut back then, you would not be having World War I and World War II.
Now, the beginning, that's when I have something. I'm like,
what?
So,
what the fuck?
There was definitely a much earlier origin point.
Did this nigga just said black women not keeping their mouth shut caused World War I and II? Oh, hell no. Oh, hell no. What? Dog, whoever said that bullshit, bruh, I'm gonna find out who it is. I'm gonna do my own research. I'm not gonna out nobody, but I'm gonna find out who the fuck that is.
Talk radio, I would also say television too, of like
So
gender war conflict. It's just the origin of the Black Manosphere, at least on YouTube, it actually starts in 2008 inadvertently, when YouTube is still this very nascent social media platform that people just don't know how to use properly.
Yep.
And in the video on history of video, I just have just some conflict about interracial dating that kind of sparks these videos and response videos, which you could do on YouTube at the time. And out of that, you just see this small, when I mean small, they got barely any views. I've seen some of the original videos, way less than 1,000. Just these small YouTubers just talking about dating dynamics and black culture, and they pretty much use a lot of these early talking points that still circulate in the space.
Since then, he's archived his channel, but not before doing an extensive documentation of the Manosphere, and especially the Black Manosphere. So much of this video is hinging on work that he set the stage for, so I want to give him a special shout out. If you are curious, which I hope you're not, to further investigate the lore of this space, his channel is a good place to do that. That said, talking to him, there's a lot of things that created the primordial goo that the Black Manosphere grew out of. The Black Gender Wars, which is a in-community conflict between black men and women that has been going on probably for generations, found its way online, and as a byproduct, the Black Manosphere was born. To explain the black gender wars, you often have seen in black communities this conflict between black men and women, usually related to our issues connecting and dealing with each other under white supremacy. And so you'll often see it in comedy legends like Chris Rock or Martin Lawrence, but also smaller guys like Patrice O'Neal and Corey Holcomb.
And what does Daddy get for all his work? The big piece of chicken. That's all Daddy gets.
At the same time, there's also always been what I'm gonna call the niggas ain't shit discourse, which has been popular in TV and definitely music geared towards black women. And there's a lot to be said about being fair to black men and how under-examined the niggas ain't shit discourse is, and why the passive acceptance of it as normal isn't a good thing. When I was a kid, there was a song by TLC called No Scrubs, and it was basically a diss track to working class black men, and it was literally their biggest song ever and the #1 hit in the country for 3 or 4 months. And this is not an isolated incident.
We ain't got no time for y'all motherfucking broke ass. Why haven't I found another? A baller. Broke boys don't deserve no pussy. I know that's right.
So yeah, might be a problem there that we haven't quite engaged with. The refrain on this is usually
no money, no honey, bruh. That's what it is. You gotta realize that no money, no honey. Even though that's not the world really works. Like people are having a lot more poor people have kids than even a rich couple. So that's cap. But it is what it is. Like don't be surprised when you're driving your Bugatti and your girlfriend that you know have an OnlyFans fucking some guy who makes like not even 1/10 of the money you make.
Not all black men, but I kind of started to problematize that in the objectification video as kind of a cop-out to deflect valid criticism on how we talk about black men in the public eye. When I hear Cardi B say, broke boys don't deserve no pussy, I take the same...
I mean, the
I think
narrative,
a lot
though.
of black women have often taken when listening to hip-hop, and hip-hop gets misogynistic. They say, motherfucker ain't talking about me. I'm just listening to the beat. But I'm not a broke boy, and I'm not a scrub. And technically speaking, like, broke boys have always gotten pussy, right? Still, I don't know what that feels like. And a lot of other black men, just
true.
like a lot of black women, I think know what it feels like to be objectified and dehumanized in the way that rap music sometimes does to them. And the issue of misogyny in hip-hop, while not settled, is a well-developed discourse in the community, in the culture, and in academia.
Big facts.
Google scholar misogyny in hip-hop,
Yeah,
you'll find
a lot.
5,000 papers describing the issue of why misogyny in hip-hop is a problem. The same can't be said about black men and the denigration of...
But they don't really talk about what the record label is not owned by all white people though. They don't talk about that. Like, that's a business for them, so they can choose who they want. And it was like a meeting in the 90s where there was a lot, we want rap to be more like a certain type of way. So when you start seeing a shift in a wave of certain rap groups, not about like having diversity, it just matters about what's catching. You know how we have mumble rap, face tattoos and stuff. Now nobody don't care about that no more. Now we want actually like, well, we're going back to like celebrities dropping, like, cause like Drake is still dropping, Beyonce dropping, like Kanye dropping stuff. So we're more worried about them than like small. But they do have underlings of people signed to them that they do have around. Like how we have Baby Keem now, and I guess he's alright for now. He's alright. He's gonna get. He got a lot of Kendrick trouble. I think he's pretty good by himself. But or like Cordae sometimes, but Cordae gotta like find his. Cause it's like Cordae wants to rap and he can rap, but he's not like worried about it. I guess the industry is not where he wants to be at, or just gotta do that shit on the ground for a while. But like rap is the way it is, not cause we want it to be, is by design.
Working class
it makes too much money
within our general culture.
To not have like
As a
people
culture,
want
I
to
think
be
there's an
into it,
underlying
and
attitude that
having
black
a certain
men
way
who
they
are
can
derided
still
and
profit from
disrespected
it.
Publicly deserve what they get. For an easy example, go and look at how often someone responded in the previous video about black men and sexual objectification, a video where I discuss black men's limitations with defining themselves in a racist society, the unexamined epidemic of sexual assault of black men and boys, the historic exploitation of black men's bodies under white supremacy and in slavery, like a really serious video talking about big issues, and you'll see comments like, I don't know why y'all complaining black men objectify themselves. And you know, some of those are white insults, but some of it is y'all. And I think that there's a festering resentment born out of that fuels the black manosphere as a whole. Now, should that lend itself to the rampant misogyny in the community? No, but it's something that I want us to talk about. Moreover, it's something the not all black men that are attached to the black manosphere want other men to talk about on their behalf, which is a little pathetic, but it's a thing. Even still, I don't feel like the gender wars were so intense before now. When the comedians did it for laughs, it wasn't a huge deal at the end of the day. You could still feel the love in that to an extent. For every bills, there were 2 soldiers, or cater to use it. It was obvious that black men and women still had a strong bond, with maybe a few bad scratches on the surface of that bond. However, it feels like the internet and social media seemingly altered the tone of this ongoing discourse. Regardless
They
of how you
profited
feel and
from it.
understand, it's important to keep in mind that
Most people who capitalize on it profited from it, whether good or bad. But most of the time, it had to still be an issue for them to profit off of it. It's just something we can talk about, but I don't know if it's probably ever going to be fixed. And I'm not saying things can't go back to where it was, where it's like thing, but they keep switching up the game for us, where it's not even about just, it's like multi-layered. There's so much shit that's going on right now that will affect how the way you look in society. Like, when COVID was a thing, Asians were like, Asians had status of black people, pretty close, and it wasn't. I'm gonna keep it cat. Those black people attacking them too. I mean, keep it a buck. I said keep it a cat. My bad. Or keep it a buck. There's black people attacking them too, so they had to create a bill to come protect them to get protected status. So think about that.
the actual data on community.
And it's everybody. Just because that might be their problem. See, I'm just saying that's their problem. That was an Asian issue. I can still recognize it still being an issue that was like not good in no way possible. People like Trump calling the Wuhan virus or Wuhan virus, like, just makes Asian people in general bad, because most people can't discern Asians from each other, which is unfortunate. Like, you can look at the average Asian person and most people won't even get it right the first time. Most people don't even probably know Chinese, Japanese, and like they be like, oh, Koreans or Vietnamese, and that's about it. But they'll know like Filipinos, people from Taiwan. There's like even like subcultures that we don't even know about.
Around black men and women, show that we partner more with each other, we are in community with each other, we support each other, etc. And it's important not to let the loud minority of voices online make you think that this vitriol between black men and women that we see on social media is how things really are.
Yeah.
As many arguments as I've gotten into with black women about issues around gender online, they never get as ugly and heated when I'm face to face with people. So I don't know who was the first to take advantage of this conflict and make a career out of it, but the first black man to really establish himself and gain a following in this genre was a genuine piece of shit named Tommy Sotomayor. Of all the dudes in this space, this is the only one I truly, truly despise.
4 of them did exactly what I've been telling y'all about. Told y'all what my ex-girlfriend said. They used to draw straws to see who would waitress a table full of black women. Black women are miserable people, and everybody.
Damn.
And the fact that so many of these dudes look to him as an
And actually not.
figure, again, completely validates my reading of them in the first place.
Tommy Sotomayor, like the most popular person to come out of that like group. Even though he's like kind of solo, but he is within that like that larger context. And so
The most miserable people on earth are mostly men, not
Tommy
women.
Sotomayor was from an era where many of these streaming platforms and content creator platforms
Shit, we
had
died
little to
before
no
our
quality
women.
control. And so he would say the most outlandish, craziest, awful shit. I think he kind of visioned himself as a black shock jock akin to Howard Stern or a younger Charlemagne the God. And he was as misogynistic and homophobic and anti-black as they come, to the point where even when there were no rules, he would still experience numerous bans on numerous platforms. But like a roach in a dirty house, he would always find his way back to the surface. If you were to just read some of the things that came out of this man's mouth, you probably wouldn't be able to tell if it was a black man talking or a stereotypical white supremacist. And this is going to be a theme that we return to.
He's like Uncle Ruckus, dog.
There are more people murdered in a day by niggly bears than in a year by grizzly bears. Niggly bears are out there just killing everyone that they can, but people are told that they're racist if they want to avoid them.
Sadly, Sotomayor found a fan base among black men and more than a few black women. His tell it like it is style of anti-blackness, and we'll come back to that, resonated with a portion of more conservative black Americans for reasons I don't quite understand. I think because he kept getting kicked off the platform, and this was well before YouTube could really make you a lot of money as a creator, Sotomayor eventually faded into the background of the movement. He's predictably popped up on various conservative channels and kind of hovers around the space. But that said, although his rhetoric and hatred for women influenced many a manosphere creators such as Fresh and Fit or New York spree shooter and domestic terrorist Frank James, he doesn't seem to want to have much to do with the modern manosphere or red pill community. And much of his rhetoric didn't really inform a lot of the red pill philosophy that dominates the space today.
Either way, he showed that there was money to be made on YouTube.
Yeah, he's just showing that it makes bread. That's the whole point. Some niggas are just here to make bread. That's it. Like Derek Drain is there to make bread.
Those guys earlier that I talked
They don't
about,
care.
Again, go ahead and pause the video to all 500 viewers, everything that I've gotten wrong here. And while we're on a commercial break, I'm going to actually change the scenery to make this next section a little more appropriate.
You may be able to hear the air conditioning. I don't know. It's fucking hot. I can't turn it that low.
It's more personal. That's not fine.
If you know anything about the first wave of the Manosphere, you know that's where many of the major players got their
from their
start
car.
Between the early 2010s until probably around 2018. Further, a lot more, for whatever reason, don't show their faces. So sometimes it'll just be a static image from a Zoom call representing them, or a singular image from a movie or something. They're not known for putting a lot of effort into their presentation. I'm sure that doesn't translate to the way they dress or groom. Some of these guys are literally decades into this type of content, and their appearances are a mystery, or at least they would be if they didn't dox each other all the time. Jay Smooth is an unheralded legend in what would be today kind of considered left tube. In the old YouTube SJW content, Jay was the only black man with any sort of relevancy through his presence, and never got all that big on YouTube. But if you're an older millennial around my age and you were online at the time, you probably recognize his face and voice from a lot of perfectly short, sweet, and to the point pieces of content about hip-hop and politics from the early 2010s. I want to put Jay Smooth out there partially just to point out, despite the jokes and the nonsense we're going to talk about with the Black Manosphere, black men have always been out and about doing the type of content that I'm doing. It's just we've never gotten this much attention for it. So Jay Smooth referred to something he called homegrown intellectualism.
And that speaks to a larger pattern of there being a big constituency of people who yearn for that feeling like they're doing the knowledge. Like, I'm thinking critically about mainstream narratives. I'm finding sources of information that I trust. I'm feeling like I'm studying the game. I'm learning. I'm on the inside track with the real shit, which is a hunger that this whole tradition of sort of homegrown intellectualism, like John Henrik Clarke, Dr. Ben, and so on, that filled that void for people who weren't going to find that in other ways. It filled the void in imperfect ways. You know, I think for a lot of people that stuff was sort of a gateway drug to more rigorous intellectual thought later on, and some people just kind of stay at that level.
Right. Or they use it to spin off into more toxic nonsense. And it's an interesting reflection on how intelligence in black men can be stifled and contorted by systemic barriers, and many men who could be doing more useful and productive things find themselves simply arguing with other men about politics or social issues. I and numerous men in my family fit this description. We're argumentative and opinionated, and in part because this is the only way they could sometimes get to stimulate that natural curiosity in a world where being black and curious could be dangerous. My view is that along with misogyny, it's this homegrown intellectualism that also drives much of this first wave of the manosphere. There are many different expressions of this high-minded misogyny. You hear these men talk, and despite the fact that they're saying ridiculous things, you can tell that a lot of them are intelligent. They've just all come to this space with one specific issue, and that's their issue with black women. But even that has so many different permutations of how it shows up in their content. For example, Save Yourself Black Man, or SYSBM, figures to believe that black women are basically the devil, and that any non-black woman of any sort is better than a black woman. But then there are figures of the black manosphere who swear by black women, and they want to rebuild the black family, and they would if black women were just more ladylike and submissive, or insert whatever other thing here. Then there are also black men who are men going their own way, or MGTOW, and they basically have just given up on engaging with women seriously altogether, limiting themselves to short-term dalliances and partnerships, but never intertwining their lives with black women or women in general. These men tend to be divorced. And there's even an almost progressive wing of the black manosphere who see themselves as masculinists and promote black male studies, although they still end up spending a lot of time just complaining about black women. You hear the dog whistles when you see the company these men keep and the hills they choose to die on. It's hard to take even some of the valid things that come up in those more left-wing spaces all that seriously. Think of the black manosphere as a church with many, many denominations and permutations of how Christ can be celebrated, except in this case, Christ is, well, you know what it is. We'll get to that later. Somewhere in this jambalaya of foolishness, there are a few morsels of value, because as I alluded to earlier, a lot of these men are working class black men who often are maligned in the media and rarely are defended, or at least effectively defended. Numerous forces and barriers.
I'm going to get a drink real quick. I'll be back.
Victimhood in life, despite the fact that we're often told that we like to play the victim. It's only in death that black men can receive the courtesy, and only if they die in the appropriate way. For example, take George Floyd. In death, George Floyd has become a martyr. You see his face all over the place as an example of the murderous nature of white supremacy. And I get why. But the conflict that arises is that in life, George Floyd would have been the exact type of black man that would have been called a dusty by certain portions of
Twitter or YouTube, etc., because he was a regular black dude on a lot of levels. He was an around the way type of brother. He had issues with drugs. He had issues with petty crime. He had a handful of baby mamas. Although those are not virtues per se, those are things that are within the realm of possibilities for working class black men who deserve dignity. And he probably wasn't getting it and wouldn't have ever gotten it to the level that he does now, having been murdered by the police. While maybe not for the best reasons, this argumentation, this major point, is something that was probably brought up more in the manosphere than anywhere else. They were also at the forefront of being critical of the Black Lives Matter movement when it started, looking a little funny with the money that we now know definitely was a problem, and other things. Now, I feel compelled to point out that they've always made these types of arguments on every wedge issue between black men and women, from Serena Williams to Lori Harvey's dating life to the guilt of Bill Cosby to Roe v. Wade, and they're more than often wrong than right, because they basically just take whatever the man's side of an issue is every time, regardless of how reasonable it is. But I want to validate that at least in their heads, they think they're addressing a real issue that isn't being addressed. And on some occasions, I think this is very true. That said, I want to further engage in how I see this space as a maladaptive response to the struggles of black men in America. When I look over this space, what I see more than anything are black men who, for numerous reasons, maybe had the capabilities to reach that high-value man status, but one bad break, one bad breakup, etc., and those opportunities were no longer there. I don't think it's unfair to say that a lot of these men are clearly dorks and nerds, much like I was, who maybe are trying to present in that exaggerated swag and bravado and confidence that we often attribute to black men, but are failing at it for the most part and maybe don't realize it, and in this maybe find themselves stymied or isolated or just without peers to engage with and communicate with on the various topics that they find interesting. Isolation is an incredibly... The camera got too hot, so we're back to old school FD style with the Galaxy Note, and it says I only have 14 minutes, so let's go ahead and wrap this part up. Isolation is an incredibly serious problem for all men. A lack of intimate partnerships and useful, productive, platonic friendships is genuinely unhealthy and leads to further isolation and more opportunities for these men to get sucked into these spaces. Because the black manosphere is like a cure for this problem from these men's perspective, as far as I can tell. Like I said, some of these guys have been making this stuff for a decade now. Some have fans that have been there solidly the whole time. And a lot of the content on these smaller black channels is like these panel discussions, which is basically just a bunch of men trying to get access to a community, talking to each other, connecting with other men. It seems like a disproportionate amount of them are truckers, or maybe black men in rural areas who find the community of the manosphere to be important, if not just to give them an opportunity to have useful and stimulating conversations with other men. This is one of the reasons why I include Umar Johnson and lots of other Hotep figures like your Tariq Nasheeds and the Coliseum, or whatever other Hotep debate spaces there exist on YouTube. Y'all, there's a whole Hotep debate bro scene that I didn't know existed. They may not be red pill, but they represent a form of black male intellectualism akin to the traditions of black males who are philosophers and scholars for generations in this country without formal education or fancy degrees. You have guys like Iceberg Slim, Donald Goines, Walter Dean Myers, John Henrik Clark, Neely Fuller, including some of those aforementioned comedians. These were black men who found a way to express themselves and express big ideas. Some of those ideas harmful, and we've maybe hopefully learned not to bring them forward in 2022, but some folks haven't. But even still, with those bad parts, they were able to bring insight and understanding and philosophy about the black experience and the black male experience. And this is akin to what I've preached on previously about why we don't deify and idolize scholars. I've been saying it for videos now. Please don't, if you're a big fan of Marx, Google who Frederick Demuth was. And thus these spaces are a double-edged sword, because misogyny, homophobia, and increasingly xenophobia have become commonplace in them. But if you're an intellectually curious black man drawn to the energy of philosophy and debate, but without the access to it from a college or the thousands of dollars in debt that you might have to get into to go to a formal university, I get it. I get the appeal, and I understand why some of these men are there, except the misogyny. I love a lot of my boys, right? Like a lot of my homies I've known for years that we are very close, but only a few of them will I talk about anything more than sports and video games with. And if you are an intellectually curious type of dude who needs that type of energy and you can't find that in women, the black manosphere might have something for you. It just might. It's not gonna help you get women though, like that. That's the other part. It's the patriarchal frameworks that we are all brought up in, combined with the difficult experiences of loving and partnering while black, that make the misogyny within the space kind of this beacon for men to collect around. It's more like the price of admission than the actual focus of the space sometimes. And that might be why these men don't get how they look and sound from the outside looking in. They see their misogyny and some of the ridiculous things they say and believe, or the ridiculous things of other men within their community that they just kind of give passes to as normal. This is just dudes doing what they do. It's the reason why they really, like I heard this multiple times from these various response videos, they think that I have an all-female or all-white audience audience, which is not true. Y'all niggas are the outliers here. I've showed my analytics on multiple occasions. Here it is again for y'all to see. My audience is 60 to 70% male. And when you look at the content I'm making, I am not making white male, white female, white oriented content. It is accessible to them. But look at the shit. No, I'm gonna come back from that because I think we just bonded a little bit there. I think those of you who are in the Black Manosphere stuff that do watch me because you see at some level there's similarities here in terms of like the struggle and the way we see and experience the world, although with a different overall perspective and response to that struggle. And I hope and I'm happy that at some level we can bond on that. And I don't know, man, y'all just like, let's hug. Like, y'all know I'm an intersectional feminist, and I'm not afraid of male intimacy. Just come on.
This is.
But going back to the fact that they can't tell that they're the weirdos in the room. The big problem for the first wave era of the manosphere is that much like most nerds, the vast majority of them have what I call STME, or scaring the maidens energy. Which is a way of saying that these men are putting off bad vibes and lack social skills or the ability to read the room if the room isn't full of a bunch of other dudes who are like-minded. This is why the manosphere is kind of like a cult, because once you've been in there and start adopting that rhetoric to an extent, you can't properly operate outside of it. So you'll have like manosphere dudes at the kickback, right? And somebody will put on the new Beyonce or Meg Thee Stallion, and these dudes can't even have fun and dance with the ladies because they're too busy thinking about their red pill shit, and they're angry that they're being exposed to this feminist Jezebel shit. So they like put on MF Doom or Tyler the Creator, old Tyler the Creator. Everyone sees this STD.
I've never heard anybody say put on the old Tyler Creator.
Special, the intellectual woke few.
I mean,
they
that
don't
ass.
notice how men with their shit together quietly look down on them. Even those black men who are still invested in conservative and misogynistic beliefs look at especially that smaller old wave of the manosphere and say, I don't know about these niggas. They avoid these spaces because these spaces are dead. They're black holes. They offer minimal support or solutions other than the escape from a world that feels hostile. And this is actually what makes the next wave of the manosphere that happened in the last couple of years.
That is kind of true.
Because they kind of fixed all of those problems, but at the same time made everything much, much, much worse.
So all you MGTOW red pill guys, even some of you Airborne guys, I got love for you guys, and I dedicate all this pussy to you. All you guys. So tonight, while y'all doing y'all live cast, sexually frustrated, just know I'm probably gonna be dicking down another bitch, and I dedicate all that ass to you. Like, comment, subscribe.
Alright, watch the whole thing. Some of y'all here.
Is that why I said that, man? I'm fucking another bitch.
The mindset of these chicks out here, y'all gotta understand this, guys. I want to see y'all win, right?
I already know who this is. That's low tier guard. That gotta be low tier. I'm sorry, that gotta be low tier.
If we would have just neutralized what we was going through at that time frame, and fast forward to today's time, there will not be no Jim Crow, let alone in certain parts of South Africa.
Part 3 or 4, I'm not sure. But it's titled Worst Niggas on the Internet. That's my CJ the X impression. So what we're
Worst niggas on
shot the whole time. Like I said earlier, I feel like
worst
the
niggas on the internet
is very obscure. The rhetoric popularized by them is prominent, but the figures and fan bases are very niche. I think the average person thinking about the Black Manosphere today is thinking about channels like Steph is Cold, Fit Fresh maybe, Fit Fearless. That wasn't even no purpose. That's just
Fearless.
That wasn't even shade. And of course, Fresh and Fit. A lot of these guys have found a lot more success than anybody in the previous Black Manosphere could in a much shorter amount of time than their predecessors. From my perspective, this comes down to a few differences. One, their content is much simpler. It's easier to digest. It's not as heady. These are not the homegrown intellectuals, most of them. Two, it is much more explicitly misogynistic. Say everything you want about the old manosphere, like genuinely speaking, just say whatever the fuck you want, I don't care. But the misogyny for them was at least couched in this pro-black, subtext, or it was a subtext to their pro-black ideology, a lot of them. These new dudes are just misogynistic. It's just misogyny. That's it. Three, and this is the interesting one, they tend to be much closer to ideal images of black masculinity. I should also add that these new guys are younger, which also gives them an edge being of the generation that makes up most of the eyes on social media.
Yeah.
But overall, in half the amount of time, a lot of these newer guys have amassed much larger audiences in bank accounts on the shoulders of the less attractive, less affable, more steamy, that's the STME, men who came before them. So this second wave of the manosphere raises some interesting
scaring
things
the
to
mating.
me. Going back to
They got bread and they got social media proof, so
yes,
they can say what they want to say.
but also a reasonable mistake to make. The amount of space and relevance that is made up by the second wave creators that is just classic misogyny with a little bit of conservative talking points, a bunch of red pill nonsense, etc. They make up the vast majority of what anyone would think of when they think of the Black Manosphere. They dwarf these smaller channels of the old wave, especially anyone in the first wave that isn't explicitly regressive and conservative. These creators complaining that I misunderstand the space don't seem to understand the space themselves, that on the grand scale, they are insignificant to the space that they help create, which is kind of tragic on a weird way. It'd be like me saying BreadTube is a very diverse content creation community. Very, 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 very diverse. Oh, hey, look, it's T1J. Hi, I'm T1J.
Follow me.
It's the overt misogyny that gives these guys their views. The sale of this
Follow me.
image drives clicks in the algorithm response. Nobody wants to hear a bunch of niggas arguing in a Zoom chat or the 45-minute meandering rant that some of these dudes do over static images. What they want is a dark-skinned nigga with a beard and a six-pack to tell them how they too can be an alpha male and level up to get some pussy and understand the philosophy of the red.
Never, not one time, bro. Never. I like never, like, growing up, even when I had access to YouTube, I like never, like, even checked into that. But I can see now, just like it's easy to like just be like, damn, these niggas got it all figured out, which is probably not even true. Who knows? But it does make sense, though. It does make sense.
Pill. I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about or debunking red pill philosophy. There are a ton of videos that do that already. Most comprehensive probably being Mooncat's video that came out about a month or so ago. It goes through them like piece by piece to show it's mostly bullshit.
Because of
But I
COVID,
did want to touch on
2
a few
years
things
inside,
to
you
just
going
kind of
people
For
on the
one,
internet
I
blew
want
up
to be clear
more
that many
on
of the
YouTube
philosophies
and social and
presented in
TikTok
the
and all
red
that
pill
during
strategies
COVID.
or
So
the way of life, at least
anybody
the
who
ones
blew
that
up
actually have any semblance of
was
value
blown up because they're
are just
entertained to the
reacting
majority of people that was
self-help
on the
strategies that
internet
would
at the
be used
time.
for any situation. It's stuff that probably sounds deep to a 15-year-old, which is the majority of the young men in the space, you know, the late teens, early 20s at most, but with the added effect of, you know, butthurt and heartbroken men. In a lot of their videos, you can hear the bitterness and heartbreak in between the red pill nonsense. The other thing about the red pill is that in a weird way, if you think about what they're essentially saying, it's them breaking down the fact that they've been taught social scripts that do not work. That is true.
Like Kevin Samuels, like Jordan Peterson, in the respect that he starts out with this, what might be innocuous 101 level advice, like,
clean your room.
Exactly right. Make your bed, have good posture, shit like that. And then so it starts out offering comfort and reassurance, and then all this other toxic shit starts coming in once you're roped in.
Yeah.
But your critical faculties are turned off. And that's something that we're susceptible to across the board. If someone is offering us a message that starts out by tapping into what we already believe, we feel like, hey, okay, this person's on my team. They're representing us. I'm rocking with them. And then you might not completely turn off your critical faculties, but they'll go from a 10 down to a 7. And you feel like in the abstract you agree with the conclusion they're going to, so you ignore the fucked up reasoning that's taking them from A to B, and that just kind of gets absorbed in the mix.
The irony is because they've been fed patriarchal nonsense about how women are supposed to act, it makes it impossible for them to understand women in reality, and they just kind of never recover from that. It just makes them sad forever until they get angry, and that's where the red pill becomes appealing. The irony, though, is that the vast majority of second-wave Black Manosphere guys don't need the elements of the red pill beliefs that they promote on their channels. As I stated before, these guys don't have a lot of STME. They are usually genuinely attractive men, many promoting glamorous lifestyles. You can't teach a guy to look like Fit X Fearless and have his money. Maybe Fit X Fearless hasn't always been in great shape or had a cool-looking lifestyle, but the way he presents and talks about relationships and attraction is going to be informed by the fact that he looks like this.
Stop believing this crap that women just want you for themselves. They will share you. They will share you with no issue. I guarantee you.
It's hilarious hearing him talk about like women being willing to share a man and not recognizing that he looks like this. Look at this dude. My nigga, where's your body fat? If you don't look like this, or you don't have a lot of money,
not everybody's like that.
To be willing to share you.
And a lot of people are not like that.
Shit, but you cannot.
You cannot,
like
bro.
Them insinuate that they can teach anyone to be like them, but no. You can definitely be the best version of who you are, but you might not ever be like some of these alpha male guys. They don't sell this, of course, because that would throw off the grift. But to a lot of young men who don't know any better, who don't understand that you may not even have the genetics to look like some of these dudes, it sounds solid. It makes perfect sense. Mostly because these young dudes lack perspective and discernment to figure out otherwise. And they're under the false idea that this type of world, lifestyle, or look is the key to them being happy. But that's kind of going into the whole video. And this brings me to the last really ironic thing about this whole red pill community, which is the complexity of its origins considering who belongs to this community. For one, the origins of the red pill ideology or philosophy or whatever you want to call it are pretty closely tied to overt white supremacist ideologies and the alt-right. I can't recall exactly who started it on Reddit or 4chan or wherever, but the red pill philosophy was popularized first by incels, who then kind of became intertwined with white supremacist communities, alt-right, neo-Nazi, like all them tiki torch marching motherfuckers, a lot of them were on the red pill. For a while, there were black men who just went along to get along because, you know, hating women is life. Many still do. But eventually a schism did occur as is typical in these spaces. But for whatever reason, the black men who were in this philosophy space kept that term in overall philosophy despite its origins, despite the fact that this was never made for us to use in the way a lot of us use it. It kind of echoes the reality of gender in the
Black feminism.
However, and this is the most amusing thing to me, that's not the full origin of the concept. The concept of being a red pill comes from the 1990 film The Matrix. In that film, the main character, Thomas Anderson, aka Neo, has been seeing signs that the world is not what it seems. Eventually, she is in the presence of a lot of oddly androgynous people for the late 90s, usually all in leather. Neo is faced with the decision that she can take the blue pill and stay trapped in the Matrix and not learn the world's true nature, or take the red pill and wake up to the truth. Neo takes the red pill and immediately wakes up to the Matrix, but also her true identity as the one, as in the chosen. From that point on, she does a lot of karate, hangs out with a lot of clearly, in retrospect, queer-coded people, including a character named Switch that was supposed to be male in the real world, but female in the Matrix, where the directors were forced to change this by their studio because the movie was already queer enough for those who could see it to begin with. You might have noticed that I keep calling Neo she, and I'm taking a nod from Aronach, a trans creator, who did the same in their video, The Matrix is Intrinsically Trans. What I and red-pilled men didn't really know about this movie is that Neo is an explicit metaphor for the experiences of being a trans woman. You know, like the two trans women who directed this movie, though they were living as men when the movie first came out. The red pill isn't just a symbol for waking up to the reality of the real world and how you're under society's control. It's also a symbol of Neo accepting who she really is as a trans woman. And if you really care about facts more than your feelings, I suggest maybe watching Aronach's video or similar work from Sophie from Mars for the full explanation. But if you pay attention, then you see the parallels pretty clearly from the fact that Trinity, Neo's paramour, is explicitly made as a physical parallel to Neo in all of the movies, especially the fourth one. And this thing goes all the way down to Agent Smith's insistence on dead naming Neo or calling her by her birth name over and over, which makes this powerful moment of the movie take on a whole new meaning.
Goodbye, Mr. Anderson. My name is Neo.
If you need any more proof, because I know, well, there's no amount of proof for some of y'all motherfuckers. I just know this. No amount of proof for some of y'all motherfuckers. You'll make up some reason why it's not true. That's fine. But for the last nail in the coffin, just Google what estrogen pills look like in the 90s when the movie was made, and you'll see that they were literal red pills. Now, I hope this doesn't come off as the wrong type of gotcha on these guys. I'm not insinuating that the idea of pulling symbology from trans experiences is inherently bad. In fact, engaging with more trans people and learning to understand their perspective on things and their experiences around gender has led me to a lot of useful ways to understand myself and the black experience and even the black men's experience a lot better. But it is humorously ironic that the vast majority of these red pill guys are openly homophobic and transphobic on some level and pride themselves on this conservative image of masculinity, as well as being the big brains who know the real truth about everything. The fact that they named their whole philosophy and movement around this metaphor for estrogen is more about illustrating a different point. That these guys are fucking stupid. They're clout chasers who grabbed onto a hot concept that was really popular with frustrated virgins, aka, 65% of the internet at the time, without thinking too hard about it. And I'm sure many of them would have found another way to express this belief system or find their way to the same content without the red pill brand, but I doubt the brand would have had the same popularity with this group if it was called the estrogen pill community. That said, the second wave of the manosphere does have much more estrogen than its pre-modern or prehistoric permutations, and that's in the form of actual women. Yes, believe it or not, more than a few women have also emerged in the black manosphere in the last few years, making basically the exact same content. It's just a bunch of why modern women fail. Here's why feminists are so stupid or unhappy or something. I don't want to say a lot about them because they're basically like, it's exact same content. It's just with a bit more of a pick-me edge. If you don't know what a pick-me is basically a person of an oppressed identity, but in this case, a woman who isn't just deciding to go on a different path than other women, but is loud and proud about it to the point of tearing other women down in order to hopefully get picked. And it's just not that interesting. You can find plenty of videos looking at pick-me phenomena from other black film or even non-black film creators on YouTube. But this isn't the only concerning women-led movement growing out of this space. While a lot of black women and film creators have made content addressing problems found in the current manosphere and have found success and notoriety at times by examining valid and important issues for black women created by misogyny and misogynoir, there's also been another smaller, uglier response from a portion of black women that is so toxic it's begun to fester, creating the strange and dangerous creature that many call the divester.
I know they're coming for me. If you're wondering why I'm speaking in a low voice and I'm hiding, you see the pink light? They're finally coming for me. The Manosphere niggas been telling me for a year that I'm afraid to talk about divestors. They were right. How will I survive this? Why did I ever speak on the divestors? I mean, sure, it's like nobody knows who the fuck they are, right? They have like very minimal like relevance on any platform as a whole. Who are they? Why are y'all niggas so scared of them? What the fuck is wrong with y'all? Y'all keep bringing them up. It shows how goofy and stupid y'all are. That y'all think people are afraid to talk about them. I had one dude on Reddit, and I asked him, what's the biggest threat to black people in America? This nigga said divestors.
Who?
This is why nobody takes y'all seriously.
The who? I'm getting me says it's
Almost
divestors.
as long as fans have been telling me I should make a video on the Black Manosphere.
Is divestors of people? I don't know. I don't
For the
understand.
longest, I said no.
The
At
fuck
first
is
it
a
was because
divestor?
I didn't realize how bad divestors were. I don't have, much respect for Manosphere niggas, and thus I didn't take their cries seriously. They complain all the time about them. Yet if you go to any divestor video comment section, you'll see Manosphere type motherfuckers all up in the comments arguing. These dudes are addicted to arguing in the comment section. So at first they just seemed like controlled opposition from my perspective. It wasn't until I did a little bit more research that I realized that divestors took things to a different level. Like, we have the niggas ain't shit discourse, and is that divestors? Is that just, black women with bad takes on masculinity? Is that just misandry? There's arguments there, but divestors be like, niggas ain't shit, and I hope they die.
Oh.
When I look at these white men, they are the epitome of masculine, and watching some of these police officers manhandle these black men in the street is very attractive, and it's a turn on, and I'm wondering, does anybody else?
Whoa! What? No way! I did not just get exposed to this, dog. Yo, that's probably a Karen, dog. No cap. That's actually pretty dangerous, dog. Imagine a bitch getting off to you getting like fucked up, just cause you just a nigga walk. You just walk. You just mind your business, bro. And it's like, you know what I want to see right now? Yeah, antagonizing their pussy getting wet the whole entire time. It's like as soon as they hit that 911, it's over for you, bro. She's like, yeah, get over here, crying. It's probably some. Oh my gosh, that's probably some race play right there. You done get the short end of the stick. Oh my gosh, I never even thought about that. Divestors. I'm like, what the fuck is a divestor? That is kind of crazy though. That's like a safety concern, but it depends on who it's coming from. I never heard that. Like, I'm not saying it's a common thing, but they have like subgroups of it, like congregating together. That's actually pretty concerning because there are people who are just listening or probably do agree.
Feel like that? Hold on. Yes, Lord.
There's no way.
You don't know who a divestor is? Like, imagine a white supremacist, like the most foaming at the mouth, hating black people, white supremacist, but making a black woman. I'm not joking. That's not an exaggeration.
The way that women engage in
That's so dumb.
or advocate for it is passive. They do by the ostracization. It's all of these things that are never direct. It's almost always direct.
By the way, Karen could be
when
any
you think about what
annoying person, annoying woman.
That's coming in. The people who are likely going to be the foot soldiers of that are going to be women.
Doesn't have to be a white woman.
The women are the social workers. The women are the nurses. And we don't look at them because they're not directly outright violent.
They don't have policy power.
They don't have policy power, but they're the people who are going to be pushing it through. They're on the school boards. They're pushing some of these lawsuits. And it's subtle. It's subtle. So I think the intervention is different because when people think of fascism and how reactive you got to be, you think of like you need to punish it. I'm like, well, this type of thing, I don't know if that approach makes sense, but you do need to treat them as if these things can be harmful. Because when I read an article about the divestors, I had a guy, one of my mentors growing up, a friend of the family, he called me like maybe a day later. He's like, thank you for that. I'm seeing this in school. These teachers, how they talk about black boys. I'm like, so it's just, it goes somewhere. And I think we just are not good at determining where it goes.
In the beginning, I think a divestor was simply just a black woman who sought to divest or get away from dating only black men, opening themselves up to dating men of other races, something that historically black women didn't do a lot of. And I have no problem with that.
Still don't really.
Hotep dudes would have a problem with that. However, somewhere along the line, divestors escalated into rhetoric so vile and hateful, I don't even think white supremacists would say some of the shit that these women are saying publicly.
You guys know I personally think that it should be legal. So just, how do I say this without getting you, kicked out of YouTube? I think it should be open
Nah, this bitch is talking too fast. I need to hear what they saying.
season. And if you even feel like they're looking at you the wrong way, you should be able to just pull out your sidearm and just pop them.
What?
Yeah, rat-a-tat-tat, the folks. Like,
Swiss cheese, goddamn. Swiss cheese. Let me see what that brain do.
Bruh. You hear the dumb shit, bro. They're just laughing, dog. They're like, Swiss cheese, ha ha ha. Let me see what that brain does. Most dumb shit I ever heard, bro.
right, exactly. Kind of damn thing.
Go off.
Obviously.
Hey, Nene, welcome.
And that makes divestment and the divestor movement or
Hey,
these
y'all.
creators that
That's just
attach
funny as
themselves
so
to that
stupid.
like ideology kind of complex because some are so fucking goofy and ridiculous. You don't take them seriously. Their rhetoric is awful. Their rhetoric is violent and vile, but it's like, you know, it's just so over the top. It sounds like what a 13-year-old boy would say when he wants to be mean. And it's also a relatively new and nebulous concept. The original rhetoric around this community was likely just born out of the growth of the black manosphere or general black male failure or discontent from black women that has been going on for generations.
I was surprised at the number of people, but they were all white. That was like, wow, like it's really black women that really feel that way. But I'm like, yeah, like that's
I didn't even know that. Like, I dead ass did not know that.
I grew up around majority black women.
Yeah.
Most of them single, as in never married, single black women. And I've been hearing this from time. Oh, you know, I'm gonna marry a white man. You know, black man.
I never really heard that to be honest.
Whatever. But the data doesn't support it. So
Yeah.
again,
It's just venting, but it's like you vent long enough in a nigga ear.
Right.
He gonna start listening.
Self-fulfilling prophecy.
The way I
Yeah.
see it, when convicted predators Bill Cosby and R. Kelly came under justifiable public scrutiny and thankfully went to jail, kinda, so many black men were completely resistant to acknowledging their wrongdoings, and even more, literally took joy in fighting and arguing with black women around it. This is something that is still happening on Twitter 20s.
Wow.
And there's a portion of black women that I think saw how some black men acted in that time period, and we're probably never going to get some of those ladies back. They just
Nah.
legit written us off based on that experience, and
Mhm.
I low-key don't blame them. But those women are in the minority. At the same
Yeah,
time,
not a
though,
lot
Me
of
Too
them.
also had the byproduct of
Yeah, they do, like, I respond to black Twitter, which is, I think, mostly women,
Kimberly Crenshaw, Pat Hill
and
Collins,
some
and Bell Hooks,
certain
went from petty
guys.
academic figures to names you might see on Twitter or being joked about on
If you look crazy, talking crazy
now,
about
a
black
whole generation
women,
of millennials and Z's that had never actually read any feminist texts were learning about feminism from Tumblr or Facebook or YouTube. And now every woman that complained, whether validly or invalidly, about something that men did could be labeled a feminist, and some would call themselves feminists, even while exhibiting wholly anti-feminist rhetoric and attitudes like blatant homophobia and transphobia, the denigration of other black women, and especially with divestors, an explicit love and desire for patriarchy, specifically white patriarchy.
So I don't want to take away from the fact that like some of these divestors have been through some serious shit.
damn.
And their heads responding to the serious issue and plight of black women and girls. But, you know, it's kind of familiar. It's like almost all of their videos are about how much they hate black men and how black men do this and black men do that.
Of Your Broken Buck, and then we'll just put it out there. So let's get into the profile of Your Broken Buck, and then we'll talk through a few stories. So their physical appearance. So these bucks have limp wrists. They are loose booty hoes. This is why oftentimes they'll have skid marks and dookie stains in their drawers and their underwear.
So much like the manosphere, it's hard to pick out who's really in the divestment movement per se. But the scary and dangerous thing is that the rhetoric of how divestors talk about black men can subterfuge itself into bad feminist takes, or at worst, niggas ain't shit talking points that just seem normal to this point. A lot of black women will, much like black men, go through a bad breakup or rejection and open up TikTok to a femininity code, and then somewhere down the line think it's cute to call niggas bullet bags. I don't think we have a strong
What?
lens to looking at
Bullet
women's
bags.
function from the intersection of being black and woman. It's kind of like we took standpoint theory and decided that if you stand at this particular point, there's no theories on how you contribute to these problems. And yeah, these women clearly prove that that's something we need to dig in a little bit on.
Yeah, like, where's that coming from?
Crap, it's like Stormfront in here. So normally this happens with a lot of online communities. It starts off as there's always been black women responding to the rhetoric, even on long forums. But over time, as it increases, and not to mention when people are like bashing your group, it's just natural that you're going to want to defend it. But I don't think people realize that gradually they start to become just as toxic as the people that they were criticizing.
Yep.
And like, I want to be clear, we know how to call black women out and especially embarrass black women when they do something we think they shouldn't have done. But I'm talking about the level of critical assessment for explicit toxic behavior like homophobia, biphobia, the things I mentioned earlier, that is relatively common among a lot of black women. There's a gap in that analytical frame. Like, perfect example, a couple of years ago in 2020 when Ice Cube did that dumb shit with Donald Trump, and Donald Trump kind of just made him look stupid and used his name to, you know, rile a couple of niggas up. The media were very quick to pathologize the reasons why black men were supporting Donald Trump and how blackness and maleness informed it. I'm doing this very importantly because
it's two different things. Yeah,
it's like motherfuckers didn't check that intersection. It was time to evaluate that take because the data shows that black men are the most progressive group of men in all of the country. We overwhelmingly vote for leftist policies compared to other men, but you know, we don't get credit for that shit. Meanwhile, some of the biggest and most visible black stars in the Republican Party over the last few years have almost all been black women, and we don't attribute that to their status as black women. I've never heard anyone try to figure out what connection, if any, exists there. And please believe, a lot of these divestors love them some Candace Owens. But when we assess Candace Owens, we don't assess if or how her status as a black woman brought her to that position. A well-understood tenet of popular black feminist thought is how the damage that black men often do to black women is in part a product of our desire to attain the status of white patriarchy. This is, for whatever reason, controversial to some black masculine scholars, but I don't buy that shit, and I don't think it should be. And this isn't a black feminist concept. Eldridge Cleaver, Malcolm X, Fanon, so many black scholars, black men scholars, have recognized this phenomenon. However, I don't know if anybody has effectively described the same phenomenon for black women. No, I'm not talking about the Hotep talking points. I'm talking about the soft life, the femininity coaches, the black women in luxury, not to mention the traditional denigration of working class black men in women-centered black media. In Tina Ward's last Manosphere video, which I featured in, we talked about this conundrum that isn't fully being unearthed among the culture. And she also observed some of these same issues with social media movements that tacitly endorse a specific type of femininity as ideal that needs to be unpacked.
Of the coaches themselves, then definitely the aesthetic of the women they pedestal. And the way I know it's aesthetic driven is some of these coaches will have videos with their faces in it, but a completely different woman in their thumbnail, a woman who coincidentally matches the aesthetic of the movement. I struggle to get on board because this image, which is eerily close to the white European ideal, or as close as we can get as black women, is passively championed not just as yet another option of feminine expression, but as the true feminine image in its purest of forms. Now again, this is just passive, but I still get the vibe. How the hell did I get here?
Now, of course, there's nuance and complexity in play here, and I hope you all give me the grace to know that I know, as I've engaged with this on numerous times on the channel. But the reality of the problem of divestors is that they take these not so toxic trending topics to their natural extreme of overt white supremacy.
And like what she was positioning will still give birth to these males, but black women do more than you're already doing. So you already have to work and go to school and be the breadwinner, but do more to raise these male sons. And it's like, no, like you worship black men to the highest extent. Bottom line is, most of them don't need to be here. It is just that simple. And I'm unapologetic in saying it because I know this
you got no father.
It is the solution. Now they don't have to like it. They can try to present a different solution. All roads, except the same road that you've been going down to, is going to lead to a decline in the black male population. And that's because it needs to.
It's like a weird form of white feminism being practiced by black women. But because they're black women, it's hard to recognize that this is legit white girl boss feminism. And I'm not going to be the one to lead that charge, but it's in there, you know. And to be clear, a lot of black women have went there on this topic. The black men I've seen bring this up almost always do it poorly or for the wrong reasons. It's always to get a dunk on black feminists or black women in public.
Yeah, that's not the point.
But when black women point it
it's
out,
to solve a problem, but not to trash somebody. If you're gonna debate or solve issues, not to trash the person, it's to make sure the issue is dealt with.
She got attacked enough by them that she had to spin the block on the topic. And I want to point out that numerous other black female creators, such as Kim Foster, the aforementioned T. Noir, Nappy-Headed Jojoba, and Julesy, have all made content around these issues. So this argument that nobody's talking about it is not true. And to be clear, the black femininity stuff is a far cry from divestment, but it's emblematic of the problem of the co-opting of black feminist rhetoric for essentially anti-feminist goals. And because the experiences of those divestors, which sometimes can be very toxic and harmful because they've come from the same issues that we come from, the rhetoric and aesthetics looks like black feminism to the untrained eye. It's hard to draw a line between the toxic and anti-black male neoliberal stuff and the valid critiques of misogyny and misogynoir. With some, it's obvious, right? Like some of these channels and comment sections look like something out of Stormfront.
Help me understand. Please help me understand how that is not the definition of a hate group. Do I not see a black man there being hung that was something that we know in the history of America happened plenty of times, oftentimes promoted by hate groups.
Like, I'll give Black Manosphere niggas this. They hate black women, right? But I've never heard them talk about killing them. That's another level. That's wild. Y'all want us to die though. Like, you want a reduction in the black male population. That's eugenics, nigga. Like, what the fuck is wrong with y'all?
But with no critical engagement with the normalization of anti-black male rhetoric, nor a full unpacking of how black feminism is being co-opted, it can be concerning what critiques of black men get passes in the mainstream media with minimal pushback. All that said, let's be very clear. These manosphere dudes are now trying to label every black woman they have an issue with as a divester. When I asked about this on my Twitter, I had people sending me stuff that was just like, misogyny bad, black men do better. And it's like, no, nah, that's not divestment. That doesn't make the cut. Misogyny is bad, and some of these niggas need to do better. It's a difficult balancing act because both these communities suck. It's impossible to engage with the issues of one without the other claiming you as on their side. And both their fan bases are prone to toxic behavior, although the manosphere dudes have proven explicitly dangerous and violent at times, which is an important thing to keep in mind. But at the end of the day, both are coming from a genuine place of hurt and with valid issues that should be addressed. And it makes it almost impossible to address it. Further, if you look at the divester channels, there aren't nearly as many. There are only like 2 or 3 with more than 100K subs, and none of them will consistently get views on their video. There's maybe a half dozen other small channels. Is this space growing? Maybe. Is it anywhere near the level of the black manosphere? Not at all. When I mention divesters at any time, I inevitably get the question, what the fuck is a divester? Meanwhile, manosphere channels are pulling hundreds of thousands of subs and views a month. These manosphere dudes are telling on themselves with their concentration on this small niche group. Sure, they're awful, but it's 2 different levels of a problem.
Yeah, I got a package. Whoa! No! Get your dog!
This section of this video is by far the biggest and most significant exposure that entire goofy ass community has had. Was it even smart to give them this attention at all? Because they're clout chasing grifters like most of the manosphere dudes. But I feel like I couldn't make this video without at least touching on them. So, you happy? There's another pause the video moment to tell me how I missed the point and how really divesters are the most dangerous threat to black people since slavery. And ladies, if you're watching, you can pause the video for your 4 or 5 viewers and call me a Dusty or Ashy or whatever, because I'm done with y'all. I'm never speaking on these women again.
Because I'm dying to know how all you black women are the cause of World War I and II. I just explained it earlier about opening goddamn mouths and snitching. There's a lot of shit that could have been prevented, but again, block you.
One thing that has always confounded me is the manosphere or red pills anti-simping policy. Now, like, I've heard people say being a simp is bad because a real man should, I guess have standards and shouldn't have to work for or pay for the attention of women or something. I'm not sure. The thing that throws me is that simping is bad, but only for women, it seems. Because if there's any bigger group of simps for non-women, it's niggas in the manosphere. It's just they don't simp for cool stuff like, sex workers, titties, legs, ass. None of that. Shame, shame, shame to simp for that. But for other niggas, woo, they will simp all day. And they simp for these dudes for kind of the same reasons that any man might simp for a lady. They want attention. They want that person to make them feel good, to make them feel better about themselves, to entertain them, to fill them with a sense of joy that maybe helps them get through their day. It's just I don't want to call it natural, but the urge to simp for a lady is somehow unmanly. But no, these dudes simp for grifters. They simp for men who quickly abandon them when the opportunity comes. It's embarrassing, really. And for a 2-year period of time, nobody was making more money off the simping of other black men than one particular person. Some call him the godfather of the manosphere. I call him king of the simps. You know who he is. You made it this far, so let's talk about Kevin Samuels.
All right, Mike, man, get your ass up. Come on, Carl, what you hurt, man? Ain't nobody got no sympathy for you or your homies. Call yourself trying to jump somebody. Get your bitch ass up right now before I bust your head wide open. Don't flinch, nigga, stand still. I said don't flinch.
You're 35 years old, and you're unmarried. You are a leftover woman. Alice, beauty is not subjective. We're talking about black women. They are on the opposite end of the spectrum on all rates. What does that mean to the other 3 out of 4? That means that they will die alone.
Let's level set for a second. It's probably a blessing in disguise that I had technical difficulties in the Manosphere video way back when. One, because it gave me an excuse to make more content around it, which is good for the channel and help me flesh out my ideas more. But also because I may have went harder on Kevin than I would have wanted to, especially right after he died. About this coon sellout ass mug. I got a little mask off on how I feel about conservatives in general and the very, very scary influence that Samuels is having on black men and black women may have made me a bit too passionate in the moment. I have never liked Kevin Samuels and always seen his presence in the public discourse around black people to be an overtly toxic one. One that so many people seem to not care about or notice. Or a lot of black people were telling on themselves and how conservative they really were, that they allowed this man's rhetoric to go unchecked. In a way, Samuels, through his admittedly good presentation, incisive wit, and tell it like it is church pastor persona, plus his good looks, managed to do something that I wouldn't have thought possible. He turned hundreds of thousands, if not a million, black men and women into simps for anti-black conservative talking points, something that nobody has been able to do to the level he did. It's been like one huge public L. It's embarrassing and indicative of the desperation a lot of us feel that we let this man sell himself as a guru and an expert with no credentials and a past and lifestyle that clearly didn't line up with his rhetoric. And here's the key. It wasn't because he was so good at lying or hiding the truth about himself to his fans. He had so many anti-fans and haters that all the info was out there easily to see.
It's kind of weird. I thought everybody knew this, but he was a man who struggled financially for most of his adult life until he struck it big on YouTube. Oddly, there's a lot of his cult-like followers, and I do call him cult-like. Oh my god, they assume that he was always like wealthy. I'm like, no, he admittedly was like struggling.
It's because his fans simply did not care. But for those who aren't aware, let me run down some evidence that Kevin Samuels was very much a fraud. It doesn't take too much digging to see that Samuels is not what he would call a high-value man, which is a stupid concept to begin with, but I don't feel like getting into all that right now. However, the reality is that Samuels was very much a man that for most of his life struggled financially. The easiest evidence is way toward the beginning of his rising when he did an interview with noted culture vulture and snitch whisperer Vlad TV. Samuels clearly spells out what his life was like before YouTube fame.
Yeah, a lot of things changed after that. I was working as in a research lab, and I enjoyed the work, and I decided to get a second job waiting tables at Pappas Corporation, and that's kind of what led me into corporate sales because I got offered a job as a waiter.
Okay. All right, so then you joined corporate sales. I guess you were...
It's so funny because when you look at Samuels' face right here, he knows he just said a bunch of shit that don't make no damn sense. Like in what world does being a waiter lead to telecommunication sales? He said he already was in sales at some point, so maybe that makes sense, but revealing that he was also a waiter just kind of further destroys the mystique he's been building. I don't know too many high-value men that take on a second job as a waiter in order to, you know, live life to the fullest, or more than likely just make ends meet, maybe pay child support. I'm not sure. He also reveals that he had been divorced twice and had an adult daughter, which greatly conflicts with his rhetoric on black people needing to be married and the need for black families, flies in the face of his own capacity to do so. Further in this short section, he admits that he never finished college and jumped around various low-level direct telemarketing sales for, I'm assuming, 30 years or so until he started his YouTube channel. Like, he talks about the dot-com bubble like it was recently. That was in the 90s. That was in the mid to late 90s. And we're not talking about some high-tech job. We're talking about MCI, business development, where he's probably selling, you know, ad space or phone services. Think Sorry to Bother You. Like, that's what we're talking about. This was not a job that a high-value man would have. Now, there's numerous other rumors around his family that make it look even worse, but I don't want to get into all of that because I can't verify what's true and what's not. And it's not necessary to get into the uglier parts of his past to prove that the person he was putting in front of the screen wasn't real. The jet setting, the lavish lifestyle he says he lived in his content is highly specious. He definitely made probably over millions of dollars since blowing up in 2020 in that 2-year span. But you can just look at the scenery in his videos and the lifestyle that he seemed to be living in 2018, 2016, 2017 when he first started doing YouTube to see that the Kevin Samuels that we see as the Godfather didn't exist then.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Welcome to another edition of Life and Style by Kevin Samuel. Again, if you like what I'm doing, what are you going to do? You're going to click that YouTube subscribe button because it doesn't cost you $1.
He looked a lot smaller than he looked before he started getting big. Like more famous.
Bad haircuts, struggle suits, bad sound and lighting, and a general awkwardness, that's who he was until he found the right grift.
Mm.
And his fans and sycophants knew this. They knew he wasn't what he seemed because while the video evidence isn't there of the exact moments, Cameo started out his YouTube career seeking entry into the first wave of the manosphere, where he was summarily rejected early on.
Kevin said, and 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 Kevin. And what about Kevin? And Kevin doing good work. And Kevin, and Kevin, and Kevin, and Kevin, and Kevin, and Kevin.
I'm done. No, this shit made me.
That even mentioned the word marriage. You the same niggas. It was ready to curse black women out the moment they asked if you believed in black love. And I'm gonna tell you right now, if you co-sign Kevin, I don't give a fuck if you're cool with me. If you've ever talked against marriage and you co-sign Kevin, you're a fucking hypocrite.
They insulted his masculinity and derided him for his Eurocentric fashion aesthetic. Now, the second wave of the manosphere is shaped in his image, but they knew the truth too. They all saw these old videos. Without further ado,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Welcome to another edition of Life and Style by Kevin Samuel again. If you like what I'm doing, what are you going to do? You're going to go ahead and click that YouTube subscribe button because it doesn't cost you one dime. It helps me make pennies.
All right, we got to talk about this real quick. Number one, the countdown, the 1, 2, 3, 4. This is something that he used to do on all of his old videos.
To me, this is the worst kind of sipping, when you know that someone is lying to you, but you buy anyway because you want to believe. Or maybe you're too dumb to know you're being lied to. It's like going to a strip club and you really think the stripper likes you, or you know the stripper is just doing their job, which is perfectly fine, and you keep spending money anyway. Also perfectly fine, unless you're the type of person to say, don't
here
sip,
for a
which,
good time,
again,
not a long time.
What were you doing these last times?
If I would have keep spending that bread,
really my issue.
mind your
It's
business.
the content of his message that bothered me. One thing I don't think a lot of his fans fully got was Samuel's conservatism, with a capital C, which is evident to any person, not just a leftist, but people like leaning left, when you pay attention to the way he talked about marriage and women. It's not uncommon to hear someone say that black people are conservative, and I do believe this is true to an extent. However, it doesn't truly mean what many people think they're saying when they say conservative.
We don't really look at black folks like this, but there's a lot of black folks who are conservative. I think conservative for us is very different because our American political system, whether they're Democrats or Republican, they are conservative relative to our position. But within blackness, there's ways of being conservative and there's ways of being progressive. It's not always a thing all the time.
Yeah.
So you can find people who hold value in, like, you have to look a certain way, you have to be presentable. I have to be held to a standard. But if you look at his videos, his standards are relative to the people he's talking to.
You know, a lot of these guys, they grew up in urban areas when crime was spiking during the 70s and 80s. So that's when they came of age. So they do hold that view that, you know, the greatest barrier for racial
Well, I'm gonna do
behaviors.
15 more minutes. I've something to tend to. I won't finish this video, but I would probably do it. I'll probably continue. I probably not gonna continue the Wendigo stuff, but that's more of a Discord thing. But this one I'm gonna do on my own. So I'll be on for another 15 minutes until I stop streaming. Cause I've been sitting down for like longer than probably an hour and 30 minutes because of the pause. But I got like things to actually do. So I'll be on for 15 more minutes.
That's an ideology that's
Gen X, you know, respectability politics. Yeah, and that's why I call them conservative. When someone says black people are conservative, what they're getting at is that black people have a lot of reverence for traditions and cleave to older proven ways of living and thinking and look skeptically at change. That's lowercase conservatism. And this is greatly because following a traditional cultural path and norms proves safer than challenging the status quo if you're black. Doing something new as a black person is a good way to stand out, and standing out as a black person is a good way to get killed. But that's conservatism with a lowercase c. With a capital C, that's a bit different. That's when black people cross a threshold from believing in the value of tradition to explicitly enforcing it, or worse yet, actively playing a role in holding black people back, holding us to positions we've always been forced to occupy in this country. That's where we get black Republican grifters that usually pop up because conservatives with a capital C are coon, sellout, ass, mug, Candace Owens, Herman Cain, Larry Elder, Jesse Lee Peterson, and the father of this wave,
Jesse Lee Peterson is a very coon.
In fact,
He's a
you can
coon.
observe Sal's own racism is our fault rhetoric all through Kevin's opinions on fixing black people in the black family, ignoring the reality of white supremacy. He even admired your favorite racist uncle, Jordan Peterson.
Anybody in here familiar with Jordan Peterson?
No.
Dr. Jordan Peterson. Dr. Jordan Peterson, he's a psychologist out of Canada. He made a big splash by rejecting a mandate from the government of Canada, basically saying that you have to call somebody by their designated pronoun.
But that don't mean I won't be streaming again. I'm just gonna discontinue with this because I probably will hire the foreskin. I'm gonna be on whatchamacallit.
Waving type of guy himself. On the show, he talks
Streaming
about how he
something
used to
else
listen to
possibly.
Rush Limbaugh and other corny, ridiculous nonsense.
Rush Limbaugh?
directly conservative. I watched Rush Limbaugh back in the days of the colorful times in the early 90s and the Big Rush.
How many of you guys, in your own experience with women, have learned that no means yes if you know how to spot it? Al Sharpton goes out the window. Yes, I spoke a little Negro dialect there. I can do that when I want to.
Would you rather have ABO, a neighborhood of ABOs, or would you rather have a neighborhood of Pookies and Ray Rays? Because you can't have both.
See, I'm a black person. And I have roots that go all the way back to slavery, and I can tell you what my people went through. Now, I was born in a place called Rand, West Virginia, 95% white state. My grandmother would see the KKK in person. They never heard her or anything. Matter of fact, they would bring toys.
Don't make Justin look normal, challenge.
Christmas time, and also.
Damn.
Who do you want next door to you?
Destiny is like, bro,
I registered to vote. I
you
registered
tripping.
Republican. And the entire family full of Democrats, Baptists.
If a white guy
upbringing,
say you
know,
tripping
church,
about
very
your
family
blackness, bro.
oriented, church and so forth. People ask me, why in the heck would you register for Republican? Your family's Democrat. I'm like, yeah, you are. But I believe in smaller government, laissez-faire economics. I'm a hustler. I'll make it. Choose. But it's acute in our community to the point of where we don't even recognize each other as worthy of listening to. If you're a conservative, you're a coon, and you're a sellout. Just regular black folks. We're the regular people.
Yes.
I don't know what the hell else is going on. I'm regular. I'm normal. This is what it was. I grew up in the Cosby era when you ran home to watch the Cosby Show. I saw Sidney Poitier. So we're the norm. This last 20 years of gangster rap and sagging pants, okay, that happened, but no, we're it.
This video's been out there for years.
Mhm.
It's not that
It
old
was not
where
for
you
you,
say,
bro.
well, maybe he changed since then. It's just old enough where you know that's legitimately who he was years later when he became famous. He was just afraid to show it because he knew it wouldn't fly with much of his audience. And I had never seen this before I started researching to make this video, but I knew I would find stuff like this because you can hear it in the way he's always talked about black people. He doesn't really like us. He's talked bad about black men and black culture pretty much the whole time he's been getting attention from us on his channel. How black men wearing their hair a certain way keeps them from greater success, insinuating that black women can't be pro-black without husbands, that black women who are single mothers are leftovers and second-class citizens. Samuels played the greatest hits of this coon sellout ass mother, and that's what made him so dangerous, because he was really presenting a case study in how to sell black folks on conservatism with a poison pill. But that still begs the question, how did he do it? How did he get so big so fast? In his earlier content, Samuels was selling himself as an image expert and hoping to sell his services to real high value men with.
Alright, you guys, I'm gonna hop off. I'm gonna be done my boy Cass. K-Swiss. I had 3 minutes to go, but 14205, I'm gonna remember this. I'll see y'all boys later.